Chapter 535. What? He escaped. How did he escape? That was the roaring voice of Officer Ma. At the same time, Officer Ma even opened his eyes wide, like a door god sticking to the door. I'm sorry, Sir Ma. We don't know what happened, but we suddenly fainted. When we woke up, he was gone. Idiot. For people can't even keep an eye on one guy. Idiot. Ma Hao scolded twice, but he knew that it was useless to scold, but he just wanted to scold. Otherwise, he would have nowhere to vent his anger. It was already the latter half of the night, and the audience in the stadium had gradually dispersed. Only a group of police officers and firefighters were left here, doing some simple cleaning work while carefully inspecting the place. Who knew if there were any dangerous things installed here? Sir Ma, did the criminal escape? Lin Feng frowned. Ma Hao also frowned. That guy probably couldn't escape alone. I think he has an accomplice. Speaking of which, it's impossible for one person to make such a big scene in a short time. He must have an accomplice. Lin Feng, go to the police station immediately and make a warrant for this thug to be wanted all over the world. Got it. Lin Feng also knew that the situation was serious, so he didn't say anything and quickly drove away. Ma Hao suddenly said, unlucky. What the hell, why are there so many strange things this year? How is it? Lizzie looked at Run Xiling, but she was chewing the freshly roasted squid tentacles in her mouth. Run Xiling shrugged. Old Ma said he had something urgent to do, so he couldn't come. Oh, so many things. Can we finish it? If I had known, I wouldn't have agreed to send Yi home first and asked him to come here. It's okay. Sister Run, I can finish it all by myself. Lizzie's eyes were shining. Ren Xiling looked at Lizzie as if she had seen a ghost. Then, she looked at Lizzie's petite figure. Finally, she reached out her hand and pinched her own belly. What the hell? She could pinch a layer out. Ah, I don't care. I'm starving too. Ren Xiling raised his large glass of beer. Cheers. Later, Sub-Editor Run was drunk like a puddle of mud and was carried home by Lizzie. For them, the night was over. That night, Cheese's family didn't stay at the pet hospital. Chichikamaya said that it was over and they should go home. Thus, the family of rat demons returned to their home, the same home. After Cheese came back, he didn't stop. He was busy taking care of all the younger brothers and sisters. Finally, he made some food for Shu Xiaoshu and watched his mother fall asleep. As the eldest son of the family, it was the benefit of being the eldest son. In this small basement, a small 2-story, attic-like place was built. This was the place where Cheese slept. There was a small ventilation window here, through which one could see the outside. Tomorrow, let's start again. Cheese sighed softly, lying on the bed. Maybe he was tired, or just wanted to get through the night as soon as possible, so he gradually fell asleep. After a long time, he turned his body and turned his back to the only ventilation window, but at this time, a black shadow suddenly appeared at the ventilation window. The shadow suddenly shrank or turned into a puddle of liquid, easily entering through the ventilation window, and then took shape again. It was Iron Whistle, the Iron Whistle that finally fixed its own shape. Iron Whistle stood beside Cheese, slightly lowering its head and suddenly opening its mouth. But at the last moment, those sharp teeth were hidden in its mouth. Only a tongue stretched out, gently licking Cheese's cheek. Iron Whistle suddenly stood up, silently looking at this young face. It stretched out its hand to pull Cheese's quilt a little tighter, and then suddenly turned around. It didn't look back. Its body turned into liquid and went through the ventilation window. Outside the room, it turned back to its original appearance, gently stretching its wings and flying into the dark night sky. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand to scratch his face, murmuring in his sleep, "It's so itchy, don't do this." Iron Whistle. Maybe it was a good dream. For the Rat Demon's family, this night seemed to be over. What happened in Flourishing Lotus Gymnasium last night became the hot topic of the whole city the next day. It simply flooded all the major forums and friend circles. Because of the accident, the ranking of last night's program was temporarily canceled, and the original contestants were scheduled to compete again in the next episode. Although there were discussions about the rankings, most of them were discussing the strength of each singer. People always had an almost instinctive perseverance in this kind of ranking. Although I'm a little moved, but in terms of strength, they are still far behind the other singers. Although feelings can be added, I'm afraid it's not the effect of the program. The more I watch, the more embarrassed I feel. You weren't there? Try it on the spot. I'm crying listening to it. Keyboard warriors and haters, go to hell. But it seemed to be different from last week. This time, those voices of resistance were not drowned out by the overwhelming abuse, but had a tendency to gradually rise. Especially when the most vicious haters of last week took the lead to apologize this time and praise the band again in various ways. The discussion on the internet was wonderful. But no matter how these entertainment gossip dominated the headlines, for Dr. Long, who had a legal license in the pet hospital, obviously had no interest in it at all. The reason why she browsed these chattering posts at this time was nothing more than to see if anyone had photographed anything strange last night. It seems that all of them have been deleted. Longshaw held a cup of coffee and lay on her big office chair. With her body shape, she could hardly find any other position except lying down. Now my legs are short. Is it my fault? But the content of a wanted poster finally entered Longshaw's sight. Longshaw didn't care about her manners and suddenly stood up, standing on the chair, then lying on the table, and at the same time raising her hips. Don't get me wrong, it's just more convenient. Wanted criminal, Joafin? Longshaw stared hard at the picture of the wanted criminal on the wanted poster. A scary guy with a face full of scars. So it was solved like this? Well, this wanted criminal will probably never be found. Longshaw shook her head, although she didn't want to admit it. But the efficiency of that shop was indeed too fast. Miss Long, suddenly, Boss Luo's voice came. Longshaw raised her head a little to look over the screen on the table at the shop owner who suddenly appeared. Luochio suddenly said at this time, "Sorry, I should have knocked on the door first, but there were people outside, so I came in directly." Knocked on the door? Longshaw was stunned, and then she realized something was wrong. Get out! She was actually seen in this state. Chichi Kamaya, who was still recuperating in the pet hospital, heard such a roar, and his face changed slightly. Without thinking, he hurried to Lord Long's office. "Lord Long, what happened?" Chichi Kamaya opened the door and asked directly. But he didn't see anything. Except for Longshaw, there seemed to be nothing here. But Chichi Kamaya was suddenly shocked. "Lord Long, what happened to you?" Longshaw's face was pale, and she sat weakly on the chair, as if she didn't even have the strength to raise her head, as if all the males in the demon world had visited her. "Go away, Chichi Kamaya. Quickly, give me." Longshaw looked like she was physically and mentally injured after being ravaged. "Give me some blood-nourishing medicine. You took so much." As soon as he finished speaking, the true dragon of the divine land spat out a mouthful of white foam and fainted. Lord Long. Boss Luo calculated that it was nearly 2,000 milliliters. It seemed that a container couldn't contain all of it, but the considerate servant girl had already prepared a special container. Finally, Luo Chio covered the 2 containers with a piece of black cloth. He smiled and said, "Send 500 milliliters to the warehouse. It may be useful in the future. I'll take the rest for the sacrifice later." "Got it." Yui nodded slightly. After that, Luochio looked at the place where he did business, in front of a cabinet. Taienzi, what's the matter? Taienzi was holding a rag in his hand. In fact, Taienzi had been wiping the same glass with the rag since just now, and glanced at it secretly from time to time. "Ah, I'm happy for you, master." Taienzi hurriedly said, "This is a big business. Congratulations, master." "Really?" Luochio smiled slightly, and suddenly looked at the servant girl. "Well, now I'm in the mood. Yui, give me the best that I bought last time. I'll play with it." "Okay." The servant girl nodded with a smile, and then looked at Taienzi. "Taienzi, where's my key?" Taienzi was stunned, and felt a chill on his back. He braced himself and said, "Yui, miss. Such a small matter. Let me do it. I'll get it for you right away." After that, without waiting for Yuye's reply, Taienzi rushed out with lightning speed. Soon, Taienzi came out with a black bag stiffly, and then swallowed his saliva and presented it to the boss. Luocio didn't say anything and directly took out the thing inside. It was indeed a bess. Boss Luo's finger gently swept over it and suddenly said, "Well, it's strange. Why does this bess seem to be a lot newer? I remember that the paint here was chipped before, right?" "Oh, I patched it up," Tansy hurriedly said. "I saw it when I was cleaning last night. This is something that Master wants to use. How can there be a flaw? So I patched up the chipped paint on my own initiative." Boss Luo looked at Tainzi with a faint smile, which made the old guy break out in cold sweat. "Oh, Tainzi, you've been very active recently," the servant girl said with a smile. "Why do I feel that my job is about to be taken away by you?" "I don't dare." Tainzi suddenly panicked and said in fear and trepidation, "How dare I? I just want to share the worries of Master and Miss Yu. Besides, damn it, he couldn't think of anything to say. Besides what?" The servant girl's eyes seemed to be narrowed more closely. Tainzi was quick-witted in the emergency and said, "Besides, the only one who can stay by Master's side is you, Miss Yu." This was an extremely bold statement. After that, Tainzi's heart thumped, and he looked up in fear. It seemed that she wasn't angry. The servant girl suddenly smiled at this time and said softly, "Master, do you want to drink tea?" "Ah, thank you." Luocio nodded, and then lowered his head and began to play with the best that he bought. Tainzi saw this and secretly wiped his cold sweat. It seemed that everything was fine. The master didn't see it. No, how could the master not see it? But, according to the master's character, how could he act as if nothing had happened? Damn it, did I meet a fake boss and Miss Servant Girl? After playing for a while, Luocio suddenly looked at Tainzi and said, "Tainzi, didn't you say that you have to clean for a living? Why are you still standing?" "Oh, I'll be right there." Tainzi quickly trotted to the cupboard that was plugged in before. After wiping it twice, he suddenly turned back and said, "Master, there's something that I can't figure out. Can you explain it to me?" "Say it." Luocio stopped. Tainzi said carefully, "Master, the guitar that Chung Yiran bought, logically speaking, ordinary people can't resist it. But I remember that when Chung Yiran played again last night, he could clearly use the magic of the guitar again. But I can't understand why Hong Guan and the others on the stage didn't seem to be affected and could still perform normally." Boss Luo said softly, "Because they all admire each other and think that each other is the best. In that case, there's no difference whether they have this guitar or not." Tainzi was deep in thought, but his arm that was holding the rag didn't seem to pay much attention, and some of it touched a plate ornament on the cupboard. Tainzi blinked and watched the plate fall to the floor in front of him. Bang! It broke into pieces. Looking at the broken plate, Tainzi was stunned. Oh, this plate was used by Louis XIV in the past. Miss Maid, who came out with a tray, looked regretful. "Tainzi, how could you break it? This is the only one left." Miss Maid shook her head. "Alas, originally." "Forget it, Tainzi, you'd better accept the punishment." Looking at the black ropes that suddenly appeared from all around and quickly wrapped around Tainzi in a way that he was very familiar with, the rookie of the club suddenly let out a scream. Chapter 536. Mount Tai. In a farmhouse at the foot of a mountain, a fair-skinned young man, who looked to be around 21 or 22 years old, trotted back with his hands covering something. He was smiling like a child playing with mud at the village entrance. Brother Momo, look what I caught." "Hey, Brother Momo, what are you looking at?" The young man curiously looked at another young man who was sitting on a simple wooden chair and looking at a cell phone screen. The young man had bright blonde hair. He looked like a gangster with a story. Xiao Zhan. Momo looked at the young man who was younger than him by 3 years. Senior Yang Taizi asked him to take care of this guy, called Jean Eyre, all the way. According to the rules of the cultivation world, Jean Eyre should call him senior brother, apprentice brother. But in this era, there was no need to pay attention to it. Momo didn't know what to say to Jean Eyre all the way. This guy's temperament was probably not that of a 12 or 13-year-old. He was actually so happy that he was holding a cricket in his hand. "Nothing." Momo smiled, I'm just checking if there's any new arrest warrant or something like that. Xiaozhan, we've been living in a mortal world. Although we're used to living in the open, everything depends on fate. But in modern times, some things are necessary because they can save us a lot of trouble, such as money. I know about money. Xiaozhan nodded. Every time a master goes down the mountain, he will pawn something for money. Momo smiled. That's one of the ways to earn money. Most of the seniors more or less had some family background. Some of the things they casually picked could even be sold for a high price in society. But that's what the seniors do. For people like us who just go down the mountain, we can only choose other ways. For example, catching those wanted criminals with bounties. Jean Eyre had an appearance like he learned something and hurriedly nodded his head and said, "Then did you see anything useful?" Momo said casually, "I saw a lot, but the bounties are too low. I'm not interested in wasting time. But there's a good reward, but it's too far from here. It's not worth it." Then, Momo passed the phone to Jean Eyre. "Wow, what a scary face." Jean Eyre immediately stuck out his tongue and looked at the picture on the screen. It was an extremely scary man whose face was full of scars. Called, "Oh, I see it. Juefeng. The reward is $300,000. But this little Taoist probably didn't know much about 300,000 yuan, so after a few glances, he returned the phone to Momo's hand. He didn't think there was any need for money. When he was hungry, there were many edible fruits on the mountain. There was also game to hunt. When he was thirsty, there was also sweet spring water. He felt that there was no place where he could use money. "Right, Brother Momo, how long are we going to stay here?" "It's been a few days," Jean Eyre asked as he played with the crickets he caught. "Soon. It will be the appointed time soon," Momo said indifferently. "This is a big event that happens once every 10 years in the cultivation world. We need to be patient. And waiting is also a kind of cultivation." Jean Eyre rolled his eyes and thought for a while, but he was puzzled. Is it really so important? Calling Peng Lai. Speaking of which, what exactly is Peng Lai? Moreover, hasn't it always failed? Momo shook his head. "I'm not sure, but I know it's a rule that happens once every 10 years in the cultivation world. To be honest, it's my first time participating in it. As for Peng Lai, I heard from my master that it seems to be related to the immortal path to heaven. He said it's a land of immortals that can fulfill all our wishes." "All my wishes?" Jean Eyre was interested in this, his eyes brightening up. "Really?" Momo smiled and said, "That's true, but for countless years, I've never heard of any success. Perhaps it's just an illusory legend. Look at you. Do you have a wish that you want to fulfill?" Jean nodded seriously. Momo asked curiously, "What's your wish?" Jean Eyre said more seriously, "I want a PSP. Master doesn't buy it for me." Momo gave a start, not knowing what he was thinking, but he remained silent. Jean Eyre asked again, "Brother Momo, what's your wish?" "Mine?" Momo suddenly looked out of the window, saying after a while, "My wish, what's it, Brother Momo?" Momo heaved a sigh, shaking his head. "Nothing. I'm going to do my homework and meditate. Little Jean, you go out and play." Jean was a bit disappointed, but he didn't insist, only laughing. "Then I'll go dig some sweet potatoes and roast them for you. I'm so hungry after meditating." Momo watched the figure running out of the door excitedly. "A PSP? What kind of wish is this? Can it be counted as a wish?" Momo slowly closed his eyes, starting to meditate. Peng Lai, does it really exist? It was still Mount Tai, but on the other side of Mount Tai, at the highest point of the verdant mountain, there was a beautiful figure gazing into the distance, gazing at the place that had been called the pilgrimage platform since ancient times. She was as cold as ice, her eyes as flat as a mirror. No one knew what she was thinking. Suddenly, a small squirrel came to her feet. Squirrel didn't understand when he arrived. He stood on his tiptoes and looked up at the figure that was extremely massive to him. At this moment, she smiled slightly, but it was just a smile. "Are you also here to enjoy the scenery?" The squirrel naturally couldn't answer her. She looked into the distance again, muttering to herself, "Last time, Huan Jinju was a kid, so he couldn't come. This time, I don't know what it will be like. Peng Lai, maybe just a legend." In the past 500 years, she didn't always participate in this tradition of Taoism. She would only come here secretly after she finished practicing the special martial arts and didn't find a suitable time. She shouldn't have come this time if she didn't wake up too soon. Even when the sun was setting in the west, she still did not move. Only when the red light finally landed on the mountain did a touch of sadness suddenly appear on her face. She said softly, "Master, how many times will San Yang return to the origin before she can see you again? Come on, this is Master Huang." Ren Xiling was trying hard to introduce a strange guy in front of Luochio. He was wearing a tang suit and a pair of sunglasses. His hair was white and his beard was white. He sat very still and seemed to be a person who did not like to smile. He was about 50 years old. Luochio finally found a serious problem. That was, if he didn't use any of his abilities as a boss, it would be really difficult for him to understand what the strange circuit in Ren Xiling's brain was thinking. In any case, he had to ask Yi to come out for a meal, or I won't wash socks for 3 days. No, I won't wash underwear for a week. I'll throw it in the living room. I'll throw it in front of your door. I'll eat durian in your room. Then, Master, you should choose a suitable set of clothes. Fortunately, Miss Maid was always so considerate. She helped her master solve his problems without any complaints. Therefore, the scene that had just happened. In a booth near the window of a spicy crayfish restaurant, there was a table that was filled with people. But this time, Ren Xiling didn't bring Lizzie. After the introduction, Ren Xiling suddenly pulled Luochio aside, leaving Miss Maid and Master Huang sitting face to face. Master Huang still didn't say anything. It seemed that he was not attracted by the beauty of Miss Maid at all. "So, who is this Master Huang?" Luochio frowned. Sub-editor Rin started to act like an auntie and said seriously, "This Master Huang, I asked many people to invite him. Let me tell you, this Master Huang is very good at fortune-telling, especially the 8 characters of marriage. Every one of them is accurate. Although we believe in science, it's passed down from our ancestors. It's okay to listen to it. Why don't you and you Yi do the fortune-telling together?" Boss Luo slightly opened his mouth. Chapter 537. Master Huang. Let's call him Old Huang for short. Old Huang was quite a character. According to his introduction, it was said that he was sent to Wudong Mountain by his parents due to his poor family. He worked as a Taoist priest for more than 20 years. Later on, he returned to the secular world. After returning to the secular world, Old Huang started to read the fortune of the rich people. Speaking of which, it was quite accurate. There were quite a few people who could solve problems by looking at faces, and they had resolved many so-called calamities. It was also said that there was a businessman who was on the verge of bankruptcy. He was desperate and wanted to give a try, so he found Master Huang. Later on, Old Huang set up a wealth-gathering array in the bankrupt businessman's home. Not long after, the businessman encountered a financial crisis. But the businessman didn't make things worse. Instead, because of his crazy hedging, he turned over a new leaf and his assets increased several times. As for this so-called prophecy about marriage being particularly efficacious, who the hell knew how it came about? But Ren Xiling thought that this master was really accurate. You have to read it even if you don't want to. Just read it, and it'll be fine. How can you know if you two are suitable for each other in such a long time? If your fate is really not suitable, you should find a way to solve it as soon as possible. Yi is my daughter-in-law. Ahaha, Master Huang. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long. Ren Xiling pulled Boss Luo back to his seat and apologized. My son has been impolite since childhood. Please don't mind him. It doesn't matter. Young people are always impetuous. It's normal for their temperament to be unstable. Master Huang said slowly, "It'll be fine when they get older. Now it's the time for them to be motivated. It's better to be energetic." Yes, Master Huang is right. You're absolutely right. Sub-editor Ren was still in her auntie mode. She hurriedly said, "By the way, Master, I've given you the child's birthday before. Is there any result?" Master Huang nodded slightly, but suddenly said, "Miss Ren, it seems that you haven't given me the girl's horoscope." Ren Xiling smiled awkwardly. "That's what I want. I wanted to ask Luochio about you, Ye's birth date. But with this guy's intuition, as long as she asked, How could he not guess what she wanted to do? It would be strange if he gave it to her. However, Annie Run was still an extremely thick-skinned and terrifying existence. At this moment, she chuckled and said, Master Huang, I heard that you're also good at reading faces and palms. Actually, I'm also skeptical. Master, please don't blame me, because I'm definitely a little skeptical. Master Huang said calmly, Don't worry. Feng Shui metaphysics had always been a little vague, so it was normal for ordinary people to doubt it. Many of my previous customers were like young Miss Ren, so I'm not surprised. Although he didn't have a horoscope, he didn't look much different from the Prime Minister. Then, I won't look at this little brother's horoscope. I'll just look at his face and palm. Thank you, Master. Auntie Ren suddenly narrowed her eyes and smiled. Luochio, stretch out your hand first. Yi, wait a moment, it's your turn. Miss May just smiled and nodded. She was still as calm as ever. This gave Annie Ren a kind of illusion in life. That was, this little girl obviously didn't dislike it at all. Although she didn't say it beforehand, she was still so amiable. Regardless of whether she was laughing because she didn't want to be rude or she just wanted to look at the horoscope. This kind of daughter-in-law is really, really good. That's great, isn't it? But Boss Luo seemed to be a person who didn't hear it at this moment. He was already facing the window, looking at the early autumn leaves outside. But Boss Luo's hand had been fiercely pulled out by Auntie Ren. Auntie Ren, who used all her strength, finally succeeded in slamming Luochio's hand heavily on the table. Her eyes lit up and said, Master, please enjoy. No, please look. Luochio looked at Auntie Ren's fanatical look at this time, sighed softly, and simply ignored it. He just put his hand like this without saying anything, and continued to look at an old tree with yellow leaves outside. This was a banyan tree. I don't know how old it was. The branches were complicated, and it even extended to the road and went up to the third floor here, right? The huge canopy formed a huge shade. It would probably be very cool during the summer solstice, as long as one stayed under it. An old man was sitting under the tree at this time, with a child in his arms. They seemed to be talking about something. They pointed to the branches on the tree, probably talking about the things on the branches. There were many yellow ribbons on the branches, and one end of the ribbons was tied with a treasure certificate. Strand by strand, it swayed gently with the wind. This was a relatively common way of praying in the neighborhood. The treasure certificate was tied with a ribbon and then hung on the tree. How many wishes were successfully thrown on the tree by those strands of ribbon? Young man, it seems that you don't seem to have confidence in me. But Master Huang's voice suddenly sounded at this time, and interrupted Boss Luo's gaze. So Luochio slightly turned his head and looked at Master Huang, suddenly said, Should I have confidence? Your absent-minded attitude explained everything, okay? But I'm also a person with a lot of experience. It's easy to deal with a hothead like you. Master Huang also said calmly, Young man, in today's society, many things passed down by our ancestors can be eliminated. The country also advocates that we should believe in science. But have you thought about it? Why could some things be passed down? Boss Luo thought for a while, suddenly smiled and said, Master, please have a look. The sudden change in attitude made Master Huang swallow the words he wanted to say. But Master Huang's mind was very clear. He had helped a lot of rich kids with fortune-telling, but they were all dragged by their female elders with an impatient look. The way these rich kids looked at fortune-telling was nothing more than the same thing. No matter what he said, they would just vehemently deny it. Master Huang didn't blame those who were dragged to see the show because they would deny it no matter what they said, because most of the people they met were just swindlers. But he was different. He really had some skills. He once met a big lucky chance on Wudong Mountain. Master Huang secretly recalled that the woman surnamed Run had already given him the boy's 8 characters. Master Huang quickly recalled the results of the boy's 8 characters that he had tested in advance. He said calmly, You don't have a good life. Before Luochio and Run Xiling had any reaction, Master Huang said, Your fate is too hard. It's not good for your parents if it's too hard. That's why I said your parents died early. Luochio didn't respond. But Annie Ren Xiling frowned. She absolutely didn't want Luochio to recall those painful memories. She said calmly, Master Huang, If you want to check these things, you can find them, right? Master Huang said indifferently. Don't worry, it's just the beginning. Well, it's too easy to talk about the past. Let's talk about the recent and the future. Let's talk about fleeting time. As he spoke, Master Huang took off his black sunglasses, revealing his two eyes, one black and one white. Master, your eyes. Rin Xiling was slightly surprised. Master Huang, on the other hand, pressed down on the normal side of his eye. He opened his white eye and said indifferently, "This is not a cataract. I'm just born different from others. This eye can let me see a lot of things you don't know. Young man, I want to read your palm. Open your palm." Boss Luo followed her advice and spread out his palms. Miss Maid looked at Master Huang's white eyes with interest and thought, "It seems that physiognomy is a very common practice in the East. But no matter whether he has the ability or not, in this world, there is no one who can predict the future of their master." But it was the first time for Miss Maid to see this kind of thing, so she was a little curious. She didn't know what Master Huang could see. Master Huang slightly lowered his head and stared at Luochio's palm very seriously. After a while, he said, "Well, it's the first time I've seen this kind of palm in my life. But it can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. You're a jinx. You're a jinx. You'll live a miserable life." Chapter 538. Master Huang's expression kept changing. Rin Xiling, who felt like she was listening to a book from heaven, couldn't help but ask, Master, did you see it clearly? What do you mean by lonely star and emperor's fate? What the hell? If you want to say that I'm the emperor's fate, I'll accept it. But I'm not going to pay for that." Wait a moment. Master Huang shook his head. He took a deep breath and took out a very delicate small box from his clothes. Rin Xiling thought there would be something valuable in it, but she was surprised to find that it was just a bottle of eye drops. Master Huang took out some eye drops and put some into his eyeballs without caring about anything else. He blinked his eyes hard and rubbed them a few times. Then he covered one of his eyes and looked at Boss Luo again. This time he still looked at his face. His hair is drooping. His forehead is low and narrow. His appearance is poor and unaccomplished. Master Huang murmured to himself, but then he frowned. No, the eyebrows are tall and beautiful, without any wrinkles, slender and majestic. No, 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 no. A mortal's face is all-inclusive. No, no. How could it be? Master Huang rubbed his eyes again. The more he looked at Luochio, the deeper his frown became. He kept saying things that others couldn't understand. Sometimes he talked about being born rich, sometimes he talked about being lucky for a few decades, and sometimes he talked about being miserable. Rin Xiling became more and more doubtful as she listened. Was this old thing really capable? Maybe he was a fraud. "I know. Why is your face so weird?" Master Huang suddenly said in a low voice. "You." Rin Xiling suddenly became nervous. She took a cup of tea to calm herself down. As for Luochio, he was calm as usual. Mississippi Maid also looked at Master Huang. "You." Master Huang took a deep breath and said, "I've never seen such a weird face. The only explanation is you have plastic surgery." Puff. When Annie Rin heard this, she couldn't help but choke. Fortunately, she didn't spit out a mouthful of water, but she still coughed a few times in pain. At the same time, she pointed her finger at Master Huang, but she thought she should have spat the water on this old guy's face. Cough, cough, cough. I finally figured it out. Rin Xiling swallowed her saliva and scolded. "You are a F*** king old faker. I'm telling you, if this guy has plastic surgery, I'll write my name upside down." No plastic surgery? Old Huang was stunned and opened his mouth subconsciously. But Rin Xiling hated this kind of swindler. If she hadn't heard from a rich businessman that she had interviewed before, she wouldn't have brought Luochio here today. "I don't want to talk to you." Rin Xiling snorted and slapped a bill on the table. Then she pulled Luochio with one hand and Yi with the other. "Let's go. Don't listen to this old fraud's nonsense. Oh my God, have I been bewitched by a curse? How can I believe this kind of thing? No, no. I'll write a column about this old fraud when I go back. Oh my God." But Master Huang watched as Rin Xiling dragged the man away. He didn't move, but his frown deepened. He muttered to himself, "No, How could it be possible? No plastic surgery, no plastic surgery. Old Huang quickly took out a piece of red paper from his pocket. It was the young man's 8 characters that he got from Ren Xiling. Looking at the 8 characters, Old Huang pinched his fingers and began to calculate. His fingers pinched faster and faster, and his expression became more and more strange. Soon, he was sweating profusely. However, he was still pinching his own fingers as if he had gone mad. Suddenly, Old Huang opened his eyes wide and said inconceivably, "This life should have died long ago." Saying this, Old Huang spat out a mouthful of blood and fell on the table in a coma. Sub-editor Rin looked up at the sky and turned on her loser mode. She couldn't straighten her back and said with a heavy blow, "How could I believe this kind of thing? How could I believe this kind of thing?" Luochio looked at Ren Xiling and said indifferently, "Since you don't want to eat, I'm leaving. You probably snuck out. Go back to work." Ren Xiling smiled embarrassedly. Nothing could be hidden from him. She suddenly said, "Oh, where are you going? Are you going for a date? If you don't have anything to do, I have a good place to go." "You?" Luochio frowned and had a bad premonition in his heart. "What else do you plan?" Nothing." Ren Xiling laughed. "In fact, it's nothing. Just a few days ago, a shop gave me a set of experience tickets. It's about to expire, so I don't want to waste it." "Miss Ren, what kind of experience ticket is it?" Yi asked with a smile. "Of course, girls like it." Ren Xiling took out a ticket at this time. She looked like a Mrs. Huang who was selling melons. Dang dang. Experience ticket of a wedding dress shop. Boss Luo frowned and suddenly said, "The wedding dress shop you mentioned, is it this one?" Luochio stretched out his finger and pointed at a wedding dress shop across the road. Ren Xiling looked at the address on the paper with surprise and said exaggeratedly, "Hey, it's true. What a coincidence. I don't know. It's so close. Come on. You're destined to go there, come on." Without waiting for their response, sub-editor Ren grabbed one of them and dashed across the road horizontally. "Boss Luochio, I'll try my best to cooperate with you." A couple intimately walked under a banyan tree with many treasures hanging on it. The girl suddenly said, "Look, those people are funny." The man looked over. A woman dragged another woman and a man and rushed into the wedding dress shop across the road. "What's so funny about that?" The man shook his head and subconsciously looked up at the banyan tree above his head. The people nearby didn't call it a banyan tree, but called it the wishing tree. "Su Jiai, I want to be with you forever." The man subconsciously remembered the words from a long time ago. At that time, he was 17 and she was also 17. They had been here before. For her, he threw out a treasure note on the tree with all his might. The two of them had agreed to graduate together, enter the same university together, and plan for a future that could make people look forward to. "Shui Xiao, what are you thinking about? Did you hear me?" The girl shook her boyfriend, tilting her head and puffing out her mouth. She seemed to be a bit angry. The man, Shui Xiao, collected himself. What did you say?" "Sorry, I was thinking about something." "What are you thinking about?" the girl asked. Shui Xiao smiled, touching the girl's head. "I was thinking, when should we make a wish here? I heard it's efficacious." The girl shook her head. "No. People say it's a breakup tree. Couples who come here to make a wish don't have a good ending." "Then forget it." Shui Xiao smiled. "Oh, what did you say?" The girl said, "I said, let's go and see how the wedding dress is today. We have a lot of things to arrange, such as the banquet and the invitations. We won't have time later." "As you wish." Shui Xiao smiled. The girl was nice, really nice. Everything was nice. Shui Xiao nodded, holding the girl's hand and protecting her. They walked slowly across the road and entered the wedding dress shop across the road. He thought he shouldn't remember this wishing tree anymore. He shouldn't remember the treasures. He shouldn't miss the pure white girl in his memory. Chapter 539. "Sir, here's your water." The clerk brought a glass of water to Luochio, then left politely and went back to the front desk. Then she and her colleague secretly looked at this young man who was looking through the album silently. It was an album of samples provided by the guests who had taken wedding photos here in the past. He doesn't look that old. I wonder if he's of legal age? The two people who came in with him were rare to see, especially the blonde one. Was he a mixed blood? This young man didn't look very handsome, but why couldn't they move their eyes away from him? Was he the type that was easy to look at, and the type that looked better the more they looked at him? The shop assistant's topic of conversation was always related to gossip. But at this moment, the electronic bell rang, and they looked towards the door at the same time. One of the clerks greeted them with a smile. "Mr. Xue, Miss Wan, why are you here?" Xue Xiao smiled. "Well, we want to look at the wedding dress again." Then, he looked at the girl beside him. "She's always worried." The clerk smiled. "Of course. After all, it's a big thing in life. It's good to be cautious. Miss Wan, would you like to come with me first? I remember that the wedding dress you ordered has just been modified. I planned to inform you to come in a few days, but you came unexpectedly." The girl's surname was Wan Zishan. Wan Zishan looked at Xue Xiao and said, "Wait here for a while. Take a seat first." Xue Xiao agreed and watched Wan Zishan follow the clerk into the dressing room. Then, he looked around the wedding dress shop casually. In fact, for men, there was nothing to look at here. He simply sat down. At this time, a young man was already sitting next to the sofa. This young man was much younger than him and was looking through the album. Seeing his arrival, the young man raised his head and nodded slightly without saying anything else. Xue Xiao felt bored. Waiting for a woman to try on the dress was a test of patience. Maybe chatting with him could kill time. Xue Xiao knew how to find a topic to talk about since he was a businessman. So he sat down and smiled. "Are you also waiting for someone to change? Girlfriend? Fiancé?" Luochio raised his head again. It seemed that in this male-unfriendly place, it was normal for men to strike up a conversation with each other. Yes, they should be together forever. Luochio gave the answer that was closest to the current situation. "Should?" Xue Xiao was stunned. After a while, he smiled and said, "That's right. No one can predict the future. There are too many variables. However, you can't let the person inside who is carefully dressing you hear this. She will be sad." Luochio nodded slightly. "Are you getting married soon?" In Xue Xiao's eyes, this was something to be happy about, so he smiled happily. "Yes, soon. It will happen this month." "Congratulations." Boss Luo was not stingy with giving his blessings to the newlyweds. To be able to meet someone who can walk down the aisle in this vast sea of people is something to be happy about. These words, Xue Xiao had heard a lot, but most of them were from the chicken soup stories and public accounts. But somehow, he had a very special feeling when this young man said these words. Xue Xiao lowered his head with his fingers slightly closed. His expression was a bit complicated. He didn't know why, but he couldn't help sighing. "Actually, we just met at the right time. We both think it's the right time." "You don't like her?" Luochio asked softly. Xue Xiao shook his head subconsciously. "No, she's the most gentle girl I have met. She can tolerate me. I won't dislike her." "But," Xue Xiao raised his head. The young man in front of him gave him an impulse to tell him something. He looked at this young man, but he didn't even know his name and identity. He looked at him as if he was looking at a mirror, but have you ever had that kind of experience with someone whom you still can't forget? I'm talking about the feeling of being in love, not family or friends. Yes, I don't have that kind of experience. But, Boss Luo said while thinking, I met a customer who also couldn't forget a woman for a long time. Customer? Xue Xiao gave a start, then nodded. Are you a businessman? Yes, some business like buying and selling. Xue Xiao didn't ask more about his profession, but said, what happened to that customer? Boss Luo said indifferently. Then he went home and didn't think about it anymore, because he knew that the woman had never loved him. I see. Xue Xiao lowered his head, not knowing what he was thinking. He turned his eyes subconsciously, looking outside through the glass window of the wedding dress shop. He looked at the old banyan tree, which was covered with ribbons and treasures, the wishing tree. Is there your wish on it? Suddenly, the young man's voice came. Xue Xiao came back to himself, looking at him with a hint of understanding. Luo Qiu smiled and said, there are many wishes in that tree. I saw that you were engrossed in it, so I asked you about it. Of course, you don't have to answer. It's nothing. Xue Xiao shook his head. It was when I was young. I would do some strange things when I was young. I didn't think about tomorrow, only today. Maybe I thought about tomorrow, but didn't know that I couldn't deal with tomorrow. Someone you couldn't forget? Boss Luo asked. Shui Xiao thought for a while, then glanced at the dressing room, slightly sighing. Yes, there was a girl. We went to school together and finished school together. We promised to be together for a lifetime. Shui Xiao shook his head, but it was beautiful at that time. It couldn't be more beautiful. Broke up? Shui Xiao pursed his lips, nodding. We promised to go to the same university. However, after the college entrance examination, she was sent to Italy to study by her family. That was all that was said. A lot can change in a few years. Didn't you contact her again? Shui Xiao said subconsciously. No, I just heard from an old classmate that she was engaged in geological exploration. She ran around the world, and it was difficult to find her. Something like that. Shui Xiao didn't know why he said so much to this stranger. Perhaps it was because the other party was just a stranger. We were used to speaking our hearts to those who were complete strangers and did not know us. For example, the tree hole, the sea, or the fantasy under the neon lights when you were drunk. Am I a scumbag? Shui Xiao smiled bitterly, mocking himself. I'm going to get married soon, but there are still some things in my heart that I can't get rid of. I'm a scumbag. Luochio didn't answer, but said suddenly, this tree seems to be disappearing. Shui Xiao gave a start. Luochio signaled him with his eyes. Shui Xiao looked back and saw a municipal sanitation truck coming from the opposite side of the road. Some uniformed people came down and then surrounded the banyan tree with a cordon. Shui Xiao knew what it meant. He murmured, "It's too big," reaching out of the road and into other people's homes. But is it going to be cut down? It hasn't started yet. Luochio said casually, "It's just preparation work. Maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow." Shui Xiao kept silent. Suddenly, a clerk came to Shui Xiao. "Mr. Shui, your clothes are ready. Do you want to try it now?" Shui Xiao nodded, lowering his head and leaving with the clerk. No one knew what he was thinking about. Until the municipal car left, Boss Luo withdrew his gaze from the window. At the same time, a pair of hands covered his eyes at this time. There was only one person in the world who would do this. "Boy, turn your head slowly." "Yes, it's like this. Turn your head slowly." "Good boy, don't be scared to death. Don't open your mouth and say nothing. Don't drool." With this, Run Xiling opened his hands little by little. At the end of the white tiles, there was a figure with his head slightly lowered, holding a bouquet of blue flowers in his hands. The retro hollowed-out lace skirt spread out like lotus leaves, dragging a long, pure white texture on the ground like floating clouds in the wind, layer by layer. It was like a fishtail, elegant and moving. It was called a fishtail wedding dress. The servant girl who was wearing it had a faint smile under her lowered head. When she raised her head gently, the deep blue in her eyes seemed to soften a lot. She was like a white and flawless jade bottle. Chapter 540. Upstairs in the club, in the servant girl's room, Luochio knew that Yu Yi had a huge wardrobe. There were all kinds of clothes inside. Of course, the servant girl wore most of the clothes that represented her job, the maid uniform. But as for the wedding dress, it seemed that she didn't have one. "Do I look good?" Yu Yi picked up the heavy but actually quite light tail of the dress and gently turned in front of Luochio. This moment of beauty seemed to be enough for the boss to remember forever. Luochio suddenly had some strange thoughts in his mind, but the more he calmed down, the more the sudden thoughts faded away. He returned to his usual calmness and smiled. So beautiful. He and she just looked at each other, and there seemed to be nothing else in their eyes. Although Madame Run was very satisfied with the affectionate between these two guys, Boss Luo's unexpected calmness made her feel frustrated. So the little drama in Madame Ren's mind started again. Is it really like what Li Zi said, that these two guys are sexually apathetic? The drama in her mind suddenly became rich. On a romantic night, with candlelight and petals on the soft velvet bed, Luochio and Yu Yi, who had just received the blessings of their relatives and friends, officially became a legal couple. But these two guys didn't take off their clothes. They just held hands and quietly lay on the bed, feeling each other's heartbeat between the rose petals. Plato, it's very beautiful, but how to make a human? Ren Xiling suddenly shivered and blurted out, "No, no, I will never let this happen." "What happened?" Luochio asked curiously. Ren Xiling laughed, but pushed Luochio and said, "Nothing. Let's not talk about this first. You go and change your clothes. This experience ticket also has a free wedding photo shoot. Don't waste it." Looks like I need to get my hands on Lizzie's ancestral fertility medicine as soon as possible. Thus, Boss Luo was forced to put on a suit and went to the studio on the second floor of the wedding dress shop. He began his painful life of being fiddled with for more than an hour. "Sir, smile. That's right. Get closer to the bride, and I can get closer, or maybe I should just hug her waist. Okay, next position. Why don't we take a more intimate photo? The groom can kiss the bride on the cheek." Upon hearing this request, Boss Luo was momentarily stunned. He subconsciously looked at Miss Maid. He could more and more sense her thoughts from those deep blue eyes. His deep blue eyes shook slightly, but it was not anticipation. Instead, there was a trace of fear, as if he had been frightened. Ren Xiling, who was standing next to the photographer, widened her eyes at this time, as if she had been injected with chicken blood and drunk 3 bottles of Dolly. She almost snorted suspicious, visible gas from her nose. She was probably looking forward to it very much, and even wanted to give the photographer a chicken leg. Or she had already given a thumbs up in her heart. Photographer, nice. Master. At this time, the boss heard Miss Maid's voice. Of course, it was just a communication in the heart. The almighty Miss Maid seemed to be at a loss for this situation, so the voice in the heart seemed to be so hesitant. It seemed that if he didn't satisfy her a little today, it would probably be endless. Luochio suddenly sighed, then reached out and slightly lifted Yu Ye's veil. "Master, don't be afraid, just close your eyes." Yu Yi nodded, letting the deep blue eyes hide under the white eyelids. Luochio smiled slightly, reaching out and brushing away the hair on Yu Ye's forehead, kissing it. Here was a light kiss. The flash also flashed at this moment. Downstairs of the wedding dress shop, Wan Zishan and Xue Xiao had already finished trying on their clothes. Wan Zishan was talking to the shop assistant about the details of her wedding dress, while Xue Xiao was looking around the lobby of the wedding dress shop. Did that young man leave? Yes, at the end, there's still the sleeves. Just make it a little smaller. That's all. Okay, Miss Wan, we'll keep your request in mind. Wan Zishan hugged Xue Xiao's arm. She was probably very satisfied with the dress, because the smile on her face didn't disappear. So happy. Xue Xiao pinched Wan Zishan's nose lovingly. Speaking of which, when you went in, I saw a super beautiful woman. Wan Zishan exclaimed. She was so beautiful. If I didn't see her, I wouldn't believe that there could be such a perfect woman. Xue Xiao joked. Really? Is it a pity that I didn't see her? Wan Zishan stuck out her tongue. So what if you saw her? People say that the bride is the most beautiful, but that's someone else's bride. So, tell me, I'm the most beautiful one in your eyes. Can you be more shameless? Xue Xiao shook his head and sighed. Tell me, I'm the most beautiful one. Wan Zishan pretended to hit him. It was just a small quarrel between lovers. She knew it, so did he? He was even willing to cooperate with her. They quarreled for a while in front of the shop. Xue Xiao glanced at the road and said, Wait for me here. I'll go over there to have a look. Saying this, Xue Xiao walked to the opposite side of the road. The municipal car hadn't left yet. Some employees were drinking water and chatting by the tree. It seemed that they were taking a rest. Excuse me, is this wishing tree going to be cut down? Xue Xiao asked the workers sitting here. One of the uncles nodded and said yes. It couldn't be helped. It had grown too big. The resident upstairs had complained. Besides, it's raining heavily this year. Who knows if it will be blown by the wind? It'll be troublesome if it blocks the road. Xue Xiao frowned, raising his head to look at the shade of the tree that almost covered his sight. It blocked people's view of the blue sky and white clouds, but at the same time, it brought a grand shade. Xue Xiao said, Can't you trim it? It'll be fine if you cut off the longer ones. The uncle shook his head. Young man, this tree has been here since I was a kid. To be honest, I don't want to cut it down. But there's no other way. You see, there are many green trees around, except here. The planner said that it's not nice and easy to manage. And they said that the tree is sick and can't be saved. Ah, we'll just do what the management says. Are you going to cut it down later? Shui Xiao looked at the uncle. Oh, it's just fencing today. The uncle said, the tree is too big and the tools on the car are not enough. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, I'm not sure. We'll follow the arrangement. Thank you, uncle. Shui Xiao nodded, thanking him. He walked in front of the tree trunk and reached out to touch it, carefully stroking it. Then he raised his head and looked at the branches above his head again, at a certain branch. What's wrong? Wan Zishan heard the conversation between Shui Xiao and the uncle. Seeing her fiancé's absent-minded appearance, she couldn't help asking, You don't want to cut the tree down? Shui Xiao sighed, telling her something about him and the tree. It's been here since I was a kid. At that time, I often climbed up the tree. I was naughty and often took down the treasures that people threw to me and threw them on the ground. You're so naughty. Wan Zishan laughed. Shui Xiao recalled. Once I fell from the tree. That's the place. Wan Zishan looked at the height and was scared. Then what happened to you? Shui Xiao smiled. Maybe I was lucky. When I fell, a branch broke and caught my clothes. Then I jumped down casually. I was fine, but my mom was scared to death. She kept saying it was God's blessing. Shui Xiao shook his head and sighed. But I heard it was going to be cut down, so I was a bit disappointed. Wan Zishan held Shui Xiao's hand, yes. With so many memories, it would be a pity to cut them off just like that. Pity. Shui Xiao murmured, pity. Shui Xiao? Nothing. Shui Xiao took a deep breath. I'm just thinking about life. Are you hungry? Let's find a place to eat. The girl nodded and held Shui Xiao's arm. She started to compare where to eat. Shui Xiao glanced at the wishing tree. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew over, swaying the leaves and blowing away the yellow ones. It blew away his thoughts and the promise he had made here. It's too high. Don't climb. You'll fall. It's okay. I often climb this tree. Can't you just throw it from here? I want to hang my wish at the highest place. Then, I can be with you forever. I made it. Look, Su Jiai. I want to be with you forever. Idiot. Chapter 541. It would rain in this city, especially in the second half of the year. It seemed that people were used to it. When the sun was shining in the afternoon, a strong wind came in the evening. It started to rain heavily before 7 o'clock in the evening. But the rain came and went quickly. It became a drizzle at about 8 o'clock in the evening. There was no break in the drizzle. A chill woke Shui Xiao up from his desk. Before this, he had to go back to the company in the afternoon because he had taken half a day off to accompany Wan Zishan. He had to work overtime to finish the work at hand. He was busy until 6 o'clock. He planned to take a rest because he was too tired, but he fell asleep unconsciously. But Shui Xiao had a dream from a long time ago. It was his birthday, but the girl in his memory didn't move for a whole day. Just when he thought that she didn't know and felt disappointed, the girl gently stood on her tiptoes and kissed him on the cheek as they parted on their way home. The girl said, "This is not a birthday present, but this is." Then the girl took out a necklace and put it on his neck. She said it was given to her by her mother and asked him to wear it all the time. The dream stopped because he woke up. Shui Xiao sat alone in the office with only a laptop screen lit up. He turned the chair and looked at the drizzle outside. He touched his chest subconsciously. There was always a necklace here that he never left. The necklace wasn't expensive. It was just a simple pendant with a string. As for the pendant, it was a brown crescent. Shui Xiao looked at the rain. It seemed that the rain could always lift a trace of melancholy. He couldn't help asking himself if every man would be like him before marriage. They would always think of their past love uncontrollably, especially when it was his first love that had died without a cause. Maybe not only men, but also women. They would always feel something uncontrollably. Even if they didn't want to, they couldn't resist the sudden sweetness and bitterness. In fact, as time passed, Shui Xiao thought that he had forgotten about it or buried it deep in his memory. He would only open it when he was mature, qualified, and able to smile. That was his plan because he couldn't deny that he was so sincere to his current fiancée. Maybe it's because I'm about to enter another state before marriage. Shui Xiao heaved a sigh, but Xue Xiao grasped the small crescent on his body through his clothes. But because he was about to enter the next stage, he didn't want to carry these thoughts with him. Stop running away. Let's settle this once and for all. Xue Xiao suddenly picked up the phone and waited for a while. Hello, class monitor, it's me, Xue Xiao. Xue Xiao, what happened? Why are you looking for me at this time? Nothing. I'm about to get married. Xue Xiao said, I'm writing the invitations, but I can't contact some people. By the way, do you have Su Jiai's contact information? There's so many people in the class, but I can't find her. Su Jiai? I haven't heard this name for a long time. The class monitor suddenly laughed. I remember you had a crush on her when you were in school. What's wrong? Or is it because you can't forget about it and want to meet your old lover before marriage so that you can have some friendly sex? Class monitor, don't joke. Xue Xiao hurriedly said, I'm going to write the invitations. Well, even if I don't want to, at least let me know. Okay, I won't laugh at you. Everyone knows what kind of person you are. You're an extinct man. Last time we went to the karaoke room to play, each of us had a girl. But you sang outside for a whole night and made me sleep with 2 girls. How could you do that? How did you bear with it? I even doubt whether you're impotent. Class monitor. Okay, I won't say it. The class monitor paused, but I don't have Su Jiai's contact information. During the reunion, I don't know who said that she flew all over the world and almost couldn't be found. I don't think I can help you. Well, forget it. There's no other way. Xue Xiao said, Class monitor, remember to receive the invitations and come on time. If you don't come, don't contact me for the rest of your life. F*CK. I'll crawl there, okay? Okay, I'm going home after work. Xue Xiao hung up the phone, revealing a bitter smile. When he left the company, Xue Xiao called Wan Zishan to tell her that he was safe. But he didn't go home immediately because of some restlessness. Instead, he went to the downstairs of the woman's house in his memory. He raised his head and looked at the 6th floor, the room near the road. His family lived nearby at that time. Just like what the class monitor said, he had a crush on that girl before they started. He couldn't forget the face he saw in front of the school gate on the day of the freshman's admission. He couldn't forget the faint smile on her face. He couldn't forget the scene when her hair was blown up by the wind. When he passed by here, he always looked at the window, silently, hoping that the girl would stick her head out. But now the old house was dark, the iron on the balcony was rusty, and there were no curtains on the window. It was just an empty house. Sure enough, he couldn't open the box casually. Standing in this place where he had waited for so many dusks, he couldn't open the box buried in his heart casually. Su Jiai, you left. You went abroad without a word. You didn't even give me a way to contact you. Xue Xiao stretched out his hand under the umbrella, letting the drizzle fall on his palm, murmuring, but didn't even say a word to me. He took a deep breath, turning around and leaving. He turned around and walked to the place where his car was parked. It was not long, only about 100 meters away. Xue Xiao smiled bitterly. Maybe he shouldn't ask about the wishing tree today. Was it because he heard that it was going to be cut down? So he became abnormal? He held the umbrella and walked silently. There were 2 quaint foreign lamps at the corner of the street. Is there such a shop here? Xue Xiao frowned slightly, looking at the dim shop in front of the door subconsciously. He didn't notice that the surrounding streets were different from before. He even ignored the unusual silence in this place. He walked to the door of the shop subconsciously, as if something attracted him. Xue Xiao put away the umbrella, shaking off the rainwater, and tried to open the pine wooden door in front of the shop. There was the sound of bells. There was a warm light. The moment he entered, Xue Xiao didn't seem to feel the coldness of the street in the rain outside. It was very warm here. Welcome. Is there anything I can help you with, customer? So, customer, you want to see your first love again, right? The owner asked softly. I'm not sure. Xue Xiao shook his head, looking at everything in front of him nervously. He already knew some things about this shop, and after the mysterious boss showed his ability, he had to believe these things. But he still had a lingering fear in his heart. How could he come to such a weird place? The only thing that calmed Xue Xiao down was that this place wasn't scary, nor was it like the devil's place in movies or novels, with fangs, long horns, hellfire, and bloody spots. Although the boss was wearing a scary mask, He looked very polite. He had always been respectful and maintained the strictest etiquette to treat this so-called respected guest of his. The boss and the maid beside the boss. Wan Zishan said she saw a perfect woman, but he thought the woman in front of him was the one who could be called perfect. She was just a bit cold. Not sure. Boss Luo thought for a while. Customer, if you are not sure, the deal will not be made. So, please think about it carefully. Once the deal is made, it can't be changed. Can I know the price first? Xue Xiao asked calmly. I won't sell my health, life, or even my feelings. Even if I want to end things with her, I won't be selfish and affect my fiancé after marriage. Customer, it seems that you still love your fiancé. Boss Luo nodded. If so, why do you still care about the past? Xue Xiao forced a smile. I don't know if you know how difficult and painful it is to forget someone, especially when you can't do it and know that you have to love the next person wholeheartedly. So you want a result? Xue Xiao nodded. I want a result, but I won't choose to destroy the wedding and my life after marriage for this result. So, I need to know the price first. Okay. Boss Luo thought for a while and said, according to your request, I'm afraid there is only one thing suitable for you. The necklace you are wearing. Necklace. Xue Xiao gave a start. You have to wear it all the time, just like you always wear me. Boss Luo nodded. Yes, the value of this necklace is enough to fulfill your request. Don't take the important things from me, but take the things that are important to me. Xue Xiao forced a smile and sighed. There is no free lunch in the world. I only want a result. No, I just want to end things with the past. Since I want to end things, then, I will be naked. He untied the necklace and put it in front of the mysterious boss. No, take it first. Boss Luo said calmly. Sign the contract first. After the goods are delivered to you, we'll take your necklace. Chapter 542. It was probably close to midnight. The corridor of the hospital was a little dark, so it was a little quiet because of the drizzle. A young man had just finished smoking in the pantry and was heading upstairs. But he soon stopped and looked up slightly. There was a pair of slender legs wearing thin white socks climbing the stairs. It was the nurse on patrol. She probably didn't know that her private place was being stared at by a pair of eyes. She quickly finished the first floor of the stairs. Tut-tut, not bad. The young man smiled contentedly. He walked up the stairs quickly and came to a ward at the end of the corridor. The person who lived here was his teacher, known as Master Huang. After the young man received a call from the hospital, he was almost scared to death. Fortunately, he was fine. However, his teacher had always paid great attention to his health. How could he have fainted all of a sudden and even spat out blood? Teacher, you woke up. He didn't expect that old Huang had already woken up when he came back for a cigarette. At this time, he sat on the bed and looked out of the window, looking a little silent. I was scared to death. The young man walked to the edge of old Huang's bed and sat down. I suddenly fainted. Chun air. Old Huang said suddenly. You go and cancel all my appointments. I won't see any guests for the next year. Young man, Chun air was stunned and said subconsciously, Teacher, the guests who made appointments are all big shots. You can't cancel them. Old Huang sighed and looked at his student. He said in a trance, I can't even remember why I fainted. I just vaguely remember that I was supposed to see guests today and do fortune-telling. Should I have predicted it or not? But I can't remember it. Teacher, did you accidentally hit your head or something? I heard that you can't remember some things after a concussion, but it's only temporary. Old Huang shook his head and sighed. In our line of work, those who have some ability are all leaking the secrets of heaven. Sooner or later, they will be punished. We can calculate others, but we can't calculate ourselves. I didn't hit my head because I divined something that I shouldn't have divined. The reason I didn't die is probably because of the ancestors' protection. Teacher, you will live to 100 years old. Don't scare yourself. Chun air. Old Huang suddenly said, I'm going back to Mount Wudong. You stay here and look after Spirit Paradise for me. If those old customers come looking for me, you can reject them for me, but remember, don't lose them. Wudong Mountain? Chun air was stunned. He knew that his teacher had once stayed at Wudong Mountain, but Chun air himself had never been there. From old Huang's occasional words, Chen Er knew that his teacher seemed to have learned his skills from this Taoist holy land. Teacher, why don't I go with you? Chen Er said. Let me experience it too. Old Huang shook his head and said, It's not time yet. Just stay here. Chen Er nodded and did not say anything. Good old man, I've been with you for so long, but you're still not willing to teach me anything. He even rejected so many important guests. At lunchtime, business trip? Wan Zishan looked at Xue Xiao with surprise. So sudden. This was a small restaurant among many commercial buildings. Wan Zishan and Xue Xiao's companies were not far from each other. They would meet for lunch when they were not too busy. Yes, Xue Xiao said helplessly. I arranged it when I went back to the company this morning. A vice president of the company was supposed to attend a product conference, but he was hospitalized because of appendicitis last night. He asked me. I feel strange. I'm not with him. Why'd he ask me? Well, Wan Zishan thought for a while, but you're the vice president of the R&D department. It's normal for him to ask you, isn't it? But it's good that you can go. It means that your company values you. Maybe you can become a permanent employee. But how long will you be there? The flight is at 4 p.m. I'll go there today and come back on Friday about 4 days. So soon? Yes. Xue Xiao sighed. The vice president's itinerary was this morning. Wan Zishan opened her eyes widely. Then why are you leisurely having lunch with me? Go back and pack. Let's wait until after dinner. Xue Xiao smiled. It won't matter even if you are in a hurry. Wan Zishan was worried. According to the weather report, it's going to rain these days. I don't know if the flight will be delayed. Xue Xiao subconsciously looked out of the window. It was a moderate rain, and it seemed to be heavier in the morning. Maybe not, but in fact, the flight was delayed by about an hour. But it was lucky that it was only delayed for an hour. Xue Xiao carried a simple suitcase and got on the plane. He turned off all the communication devices before taking off. He looked at the dark sky outside the small window and subconsciously played with the crescent moon pendant on his body. Suddenly, he remembered something that happened last night. He said he could meet the girl. Was he just fooling with him? After Xue Xiao woke up, he was thinking about what happened last night. He remembered that the mysterious boss showed some magical skills. But now, he realized that it might be some magic show that he didn't know about. It might be a trick to scare people. Anyway, there was nothing else. He even went out of town for a business trip today. It seemed that he was fooled. Xue Xiao smiled. No one would be so gullible when they were in the society. Xue Xiao closed his eyes and fell asleep slowly. In the dream, he couldn't help but dream of his 17 and 18 years old. Sir, we've arrived. Sir? Xue Xiao felt someone patting his shoulder. He woke up and did not say anything. He left the plane under the polite gaze of the stewardess. The company had arranged a place for him to stay and even had a driver. The driver had been waiting outside the airport. Xue Xiao took a deep breath, looking at the airport of this strange city. He was exhausted after a few hours of flight. Now he only wanted to take a shower in the hotel and prepare for the press conference tomorrow morning. I got off the plane. I'm still at the airport, preparing to go to the hotel. Xue Xiao took a selfie, showing a tired face, and sent it to Wan Zishan. But she was probably asleep at this time. Ah yes, I'm Xue Xiao. I'll be out soon. Sorry to keep you waiting. Xue Xiao contacted the driver outside the airport while looking for the exit. But he stopped talking halfway. His hands were stiff, and he couldn't move his eyes away for a long time. A girl, wearing jeans, boots, and a gray sweater, wearing earphones and pulling a suitcase, was not far away. She was about 15 meters away, walking on the escalator downstairs. The girl had become a mature woman. She still had long hair, Su Jiai. Xue Xiao rushed to the escalator instinctively, shouting the girl's name. But he was so anxious that he even bumped into a passenger's luggage cart and fell to the ground. Sir, are you okay? The passenger kindly helped Xue Xiao up. However, when he looked for the escalator, he lost sight of the woman. I am too tired. Xue Xiao sighed, walking around the airport for a while with a sense of loss. Then he left the airport and got on the driver's car, heading to the hotel. But he didn't talk on the way. Even so, the driver was very enthusiastic. After arriving at the destination, he helped Xue Xiao carry the luggage. Mr. Xue, please sit here for a while. I'll check in for you. I'm familiar with this place. It's not convenient for you to come here by yourself. I'm sorry. Shui Xiao apologized for his silence on the way. Looking at this old chauffeur busily leaving, he was probably also looking for a job. Shui Xiao sat down on the sofa in the lobby, rubbing his eyes. Wan Zishan didn't reply to his message. He looked at the time. It was 1 o'clock at night. She must have fallen asleep. Shui Xiao looked at his phone and around. It was so late that there were few people coming to the hotel, even the receptionist on duty. Only the security guard at the entrance was still on duty. Suddenly, the security guard pushed the door open. A gust of cold wind blew in and hit Shui Xiao's face. He looked at the door, subconsciously. Someone walked in with luggage at the revolving door. The night wind messed up her hair. She gently stroked her hair with a faint smile on her face. It was her. Shui Xiao stood up subconsciously. It was her. The smile on her face and the action of stroking her hair seemed to overlap with what happened many years ago. It had been 11 years. She overlapped with him. Chapter 543. If we meet again, what will I look like? What will you look like? What will I look like? And what will you look like? After graduating from high school that year, Shui Xiao spent the whole summer thinking about this question, even though he knew he wouldn't get the answer. Because the first girl in his life had disappeared from his life without leaving a trace. There was no way to contact her, and he didn't know where she had gone abroad. Later, he gradually stopped thinking about it. Because life was busy, because the days were long, and because there was no feeling of being together in every minute and second. Time would baptize everything. When he was in college, Shui Xiao heard that women would mature faster than men when facing this kind of situation. When they started to cry in sorrow, they would call out to each other from all over the world. When they started to accept the new life, they started to toss and turn and couldn't sleep. Then, what should I look like in the end? When I see you again? Shui Xiao still stood there, his eyes following the woman's movement. He didn't see her gaze on him, but he saw her pulling her luggage to the front desk of the hotel. It seemed that she was going to check in. It seems that she doesn't remember. Suddenly, he was frightened. Shui Xiao took out his phone, turning on the front lens, looking at his own appearance on the screen, asking himself, have I changed a lot? My face seems to be older, and my hairstyle is different. Am I fatter than before? It turns out that I have changed a lot. If she doesn't remember, he subconsciously turned a blind eye to it and found a reason that could make him feel better from himself. The driver who went to check-in came back, giving Shui Xiao the room card, and then left in a hurry. He said it was too late, and he had to go home. His wife was waiting for him. Shui Xiao didn't see the driver leave, but looked at the back of the person at the front desk, hesitating whether he should approach her. This action reminded Shui Xiao of the past. His class monitor said that when he had a crush on this girl, he couldn't look at her face to face and couldn't talk to her naturally. Even if he wanted to talk to her, he had to think about it for a long time, but he always talked about some irrelevant things. Shui Xiao knew that he was probably shy at that time, but he didn't expect that he was still like this 11 years later. Clearly, the summer of that winter had already officially begun. Clearly, they had walked through the last semester of the third year of high school together. In the end, he still didn't have the courage to walk up to her. It wasn't until he saw her leave the reception desk and head towards the elevator that he subconsciously followed her footsteps. They walked into the elevator and stood on both sides. Shui Xiao felt his heartbeat and felt that this short period of time was extremely long. When she arrived, she left the elevator and walked to her own room. Shui Xiao followed her subconsciously as if he was possessed. When she finally stopped in front of the door, she finally turned around and said softly, I thought you would call me first, but you're still like a little boy. Shui Xiao was stunned. Looking at the girl's smile, he suddenly realized that she had recognized him from the beginning. Long time no see. Long time no see. They didn't stay for long, and they didn't even converse with each other. There wasn't even any sentimental words. When Shui Xiao and the girl met again after 11 years, the only thing they said was long time no see. She smiled and pointed at her room number, then pushed the door open and entered. Shui Xiao glanced at it and secretly remembered the room number. Then he returned to his own room and slept soundly. Shui Xiao had a good sleep. When he woke up in the morning, he was still a little confused. He went downstairs to the hotel's breakfast restaurant to eat. He silently watched the entrance, but found nothing. Then he hurried to the conference venue. It was on one of the floors of the hotel. Next, we'll introduce the first product of our company. First of all, let me introduce the difference between this product and the previous ones. He slept for a night and forgot about the preparation work before the conference. But his ability was enough to handle the conference, and he seemed to be unexpectedly praised. The people in the branch praised his explanation this time. Shui Xiao just said a few words modestly because he had prepared enough information. It was the people who worked hard to prepare the information. There was still a lot of work after the conference. Shui Xiao had to deal with the people in the branch and some customers who were interested in the product. If there were no accidents, he would need to have more in-depth contact with customers in the next 2 or 3 days. Of course, there would be some reception activities for business trips. Shui Xiao didn't have time to talk with Wan Zishan until 8 o'clock in the evening. He listened to her saying that it was still raining and that she had gone to the hotel to confirm the menu of the banquet. Shui Xiao never felt annoyed when he heard her talk about trivial things. But this time, he suddenly wanted to end the call earlier. He felt irritated, not because of the phone call, but because of himself. Shui Xiao planned to go to the hotel's swimming pool to calm down. Shui Xiao didn't expect that the second time he met Su Jiai after 11 years would be in the hotel's indoor swimming pool. She seemed to have been here for a while. She was swimming in the water like a mermaid. She was not young anymore. She was mature enough to be attractive. Shui Xiao followed the swimming figure of the mermaid along the edge of the pool until they met at the end. The woman came out of the water and made a splash again. She wiped her hair with both hands to get rid of the water. She opened her eyes and looked at Shui Xiao, saying suddenly, "Idiot, come down, the water is not cold." Once again, the woman took the initiative to talk to him. She was always so active, as usual. Shui Xiao looked at the rippling water, as if he went back to the winter vacation 11 years ago. One day, the girl suddenly leaned against a tree by the road, staring at a shop in front of her, a cake shop. She looked at him and suddenly said, "Shui Xiao, do you want to treat me to a cake?" Right, under the wishing tree, he had treated her to a cake. It seemed to happen inadvertently at the beginning. Puff! The sound of water splashing and the feeling of being choked. When Shui Xiao came back to his senses, he was pulled into the pool. He paddled and came out of the water. He almost choked to death. At this time, the woman laughed in front of him. "You still like to play pranks. I don't know why, but every time I see you, I want to play pranks on you. Did you leave suddenly and leave nothing behind because of the same reason?" Shui Xiao suddenly asked. He finally plucked up his courage. The woman didn't say anything. She just relaxed her body and let her body float on the surface of the water. Just like that, she allowed the ripples to send her body away. "Su Jiai, tell me." He followed her and asked loudly. She tilted her head slightly, looking at Shui Xiao, who looked serious, suddenly asking, "Are you free tomorrow?" From morning to evening. Shui Xiao gave a start, then nodded silently. Tomorrow, Shui Xiao thought about tomorrow's question and went back to his room. He didn't talk with her again because his words seemed to be blocked by her smile. He thought he was crazy. Even on the way back, he canceled the social engagement tomorrow, saying that he didn't feel well and wanted to have a rest. Shui Xiao pushed open the door. His heart suddenly jumped. A stranger came here. Maybe not a stranger, because he had seen him before, the boss of the shop. The boss opened the curtains, looking at the distance. It seemed that he had been waiting for him for a while. Shui Xiao swallowed his saliva subconsciously, putting his palms on the wall, walking 2 steps forward cautiously. "Ew. How did you come in?" "Sir, we've delivered the things you asked for." The boss turned around. "Are you satisfied?" Shui Xiao was bewildered. He was a little surprised and said, "Did you arrange all of this? Even when I was on a business trip?" Boss Luo nodded at this time. The customer's request is that she doesn't want to affect her wedding. So if we meet at the original place, I think there will always be some clues. But if it was here, it wouldn't. Because people here don't know you, right? How did you do it?" Shui Xiao couldn't help asking. "There are always some ways," Luochio said indifferently. Shui Xiao frowned. Did you come here to take away my necklace?" Luochio shook his head. No hurry. The guest will come back in a few days. I can give you the necklace by then. I just came here to see if the guest is satisfied with the product. Now it seems that the guest is satisfied. Then, Boss Luo slightly bowed. Please enjoy this trip. The boss disappeared from the room. Chapter 544. What are you thinking about? Xue Xiao felt a pair of cold hands covering his eyes. Although it was cold, the soft touch quickly pulled him back to reality from his wild thoughts. He didn't sleep well last night, not because he was thinking about Su Jiai, but because of the mysterious shop owner. He was so scared that he couldn't sleep in the first half of the night, in the second half of the night. Nothing, just thinking. Xue Xiao shook his head, looking at Su Jiai up and down. She didn't dress up, only wearing a casual outfit, and didn't even put on light makeup. Xue Xiao was surprised to find that Su Jiai's skin was still as good as that of a young girl, even though she was 27 years old. Her face was a little deeper, and her hair was longer, so she was a little taller. The rest didn't seem to have changed, just like the little action of covering his eyes. Then let's go. Su Jiai held Xue Xiao's hand without saying anything. Her natural action made Xue Xiao absent-minded because he didn't feel awkward. Yes, he didn't. It seemed that Su Jiai had arranged the route for today. They each bought a shared bike outside the hotel. Su Jiai rode the bike and rushed forward, letting Xue Xiao chase after her. Xue Xiao never knew that this woman could have such good physical strength. He thought that it was probably because of the geological exploration that her physical strength would eventually improve. But he couldn't catch up with her. Xue Xiao gasped, glancing at his belly, which couldn't be covered even if he wore the loosest clothes. He was thinking that perhaps he should lose some weight. But Xue Xiao had to admit that the route Su Jiai arranged was good. This city was a coastal city, so they rode from the hotel along the mountainous greenway, taking in almost half of the city's scenery. Finally, Su Jiai stopped at the hillside. She held the handrail and looked down. Xue Xiao was still pedaling hard to climb the slope. She was up there, not far away. The wind lifted her hair. Xue Xiao almost exhausted his strength every time, feeling that the 10-meter uphill road was very long. She seemed to have become unreachable, but he still chased up with all his might. It was only when he finally arrived at the stop that he felt a sense of success. But Su Jiai had got on the bike again. Under Xue Xiao's horrified gaze, she slid down the mountain. Her expression seemed to be saying, was as if he had no intention of letting him catch up to him. Last night, she had said that she couldn't help but want to play with him whenever she saw him. Xue Xiao rubbed his forehead and thought it was lucky that it was only the way down the mountain. Don't run. Wait until I catch up to you. I won't let you go. Xue Xiao shouted from behind. She laughed cheerfully in front of him. Her laughter was like a song, drifting halfway up the mountain. Xue Xiao remembered one time when he borrowed a new car from his classmate and drove her to the suburbs. She sat behind the car and smiled like this too. The journey down the mountain was surprisingly short. It felt like it was less than a quarter of the journey. As for time, it was the same. Soon, very soon. Their next stop was the famous food street of this seaside city, just below the hillside. There is no sugar painting here, Su Jiai said with disappointment, even though she was carrying a bunch of things. It can't be helped. That kind of things are getting less and less. Not to mention this place, the old man who set up the stall on the way to school is also gone. Xue Xiao shook his head. Ah, I see. Su Jiai sighed with disappointment, but she recovered soon. I'm not happy. Xue Xiao, you have to treat me to the cotton candy over there, then I'll be happy. You can still eat? Xue Xiao opened his mouth in surprise and then smiled. Well, you always eat a lot. Your stomach is like a bottomless hole. But I don't get fat. Su Jiai stuck her tongue out at Xue Xiao and ran quickly to the cotton candy stall. Really? Had it been 11 years? But do you still want to eat lunch later? Xue Xiao followed her subconsciously. Yes, he had been following her back. But in fact, Xue Xiao didn't eat as much as Su Jiai. Xue Xiao found that he seemed to be abandoned by the goddess of luck. Last night, he used the excuse of not feeling well to cancel today's social engagement. Unexpectedly, He walked into the hospital of this strange city. The reason was he ate something wrong. It must be because the food in the snack stall was not clean. He had eaten there today. When he saw Su Jai gulping down the food, he couldn't hold back his appetite. Sorry, I didn't expect to have infusion here. I wasted half a day of your time. Xue Xiao's face was a little pale. He sat in the infusion room and looked at Su Jai, who accompanied him, saying apologetically, I was supposed to accompany you today. So now you are accompanying me? Su Jai looked at the clock on the wall and said. When Xue Xiao was about to speak, his phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and was stunned. At the same time, he found that Su Jai was also looking at him. Girlfriend? Su Jai suddenly asked. Xue Xiao nodded. He didn't intend to deceive her. So she just smiled and said she would leave for a while. When she left, he saw that her shoulders seemed to be lower. It was Wan Zishan's call. She talked about some trivial things. She said that the wedding photos were ready and he could see them when he came back. She also wrote a lot of invitations and gave some to his old class monitor to send to his former classmates. Xue Xiao agreed and was very patient. He hoped that Wan Zishan didn't end the call so soon. He also looked at the clock on the wall silently, counting how many times the minute and second hands had passed, because he didn't know how to face the woman who said to leave. No, he didn't know how to face her from the moment they met in the hotel. It was just an acute gastroenteritis. He didn't need to stay in the hospital after the injection, and the doctor prescribed some medicine. But Su Jai didn't take the initiative to talk to him since they left the hospital and on the way back to the hotel. They looked at the scenery outside the window. The driver probably thought that they were a couple who were quarreling. They got off the car in front of the hotel. Xue Xiao plucked up his courage and said, I'm going to get married soon. Su Jai wasn't too surprised. Her calmness didn't surprise Xue Xiao. He knew how much time had passed since he answered the call and returned to the hotel. Do you have time tomorrow? This was Su Jai's response. So he got the same response as yesterday. But his mood was different and his stomach was upset. He didn't know whether he would meet the mysterious boss in his room tonight. Another night, Xue Xiao couldn't fall asleep in the first half of the night. But he was too sleepy in the second half of the night and finally fell asleep. He didn't know whether the mysterious boss had come here secretly or not. But after a night's rest, his stomach didn't feel so uncomfortable anymore. Xue Xiao met Su Jai in the breakfast restaurant of the hotel. They had made an appointment last night. He saw Su Jai sitting there and eating. It seemed that she had been here for some time. Seeing Xue Xiao, Su Jai smiled and waved her hand. Xue Xiao walked towards her, but he started to be absent-minded. He suddenly compared Wan Zishan with Su Jai. For example, Wan Zishan would always order good food for him and wait for him to eat together, even if she was hungry. But Xue Xiao thought that there was no need to compare two different characters. Xue Xiao poured 2 cups of coffee and then came to the table. He put 2 packets of sugar and a small cup of milk in 1 cup of coffee and kept the other one for himself. He pushed the brewed coffee to Su Jai in a natural and skillful manner, but he froze after delivering it to Su Jai. 2 packets of sugar and a cup of milk. This was Wan Zishan's taste. Another packet of sugar? I like it sweet. Su Jai smiled. As a gentleman, you should do it to the end. Xue Xiao added another packet of sugar awkwardly. Su Jai didn't ask anything about Xue Xiao's marriage. Yes, she didn't mention it at all, as if she didn't know anything about it. Instead, she kept talking about today's arrangement. Xue Xiao suddenly found that he didn't have the right to ask her anything, what she had done these years, whether she had a boyfriend or even whether she was married. It seemed that even though they had talked about the agreement, they had made a tacit agreement. They agreed not to talk about their own affairs. Xue Xiao didn't want to ask about her privacy, but he couldn't help asking about some topics that could break the ice. In the sightseeing car, Xue Xiao couldn't help asking her why she came to this city. Su Jai told him that she was forced to get married, so she ran away. She didn't plan to go anywhere, just bought a plane ticket and came here. She didn't expect to meet him here. Finally, she looked at Xue Xiao seriously, asking him whether he believed it or not. Xue Xiao shook his head directly. If he believed it, there would be a ghost. Su Jai laughed. Actually, I received the company's arrangement, so I flew here. But I didn't expect to meet you here. It's true. Xue Xiao thought that it was probably the arrangement of the boss. Not knowing why, Su Jiai was a woman who liked to eat. If she kept eating like this all these years and didn't get fat, it would be unreasonable. It was as if she couldn't wait to finish everything that could be eaten. It's a pity that you can't eat. Shaking the delicious food in front of Xue Xiao, Su Jiai provoked him on purpose, teasing him as usual. Xue Xiao didn't pay attention to him and just stared ahead. Su Jiai suddenly held his hand. She took the snacks and held his hand as they walked on the quiet path. But it suddenly rained. Oh, why is it raining? The weather forecast didn't mention it. Hiding in front of shop, Su Jiai looked up at the weather. Xue Xiao also looked at it. Maybe they just had sex. After all, it's the seaside, so it's normal. Well, I think it's good here. There's a shopping mall on the opposite side. Let's go. Oh, we can go there through the tunnel. We can walk around the shopping mall. Su Jiai looked at him, blinking her eyes. Xue Xiao felt that she didn't grow up. At least her blinking action didn't change. Why are you looking at me? You've changed. Su Jiai looked at Xue Xiao seriously. You've really changed. When you were little, you weren't so calm. You must be very annoyed and scolded God. I've grown up. Xue Xiao smiled. Now I still scold God and the rain will still fall, but I still have to live. I can't be like before because time can't go back. Time can't go back. Then what am I chasing? But Su Jiai suddenly held Xue Xiao's hand, rushing into the rain, towards the shopping mall on the opposite side. Xue Xiao was curious about her action, but he didn't have time to ask. They rushed into the lobby on the first floor of the shopping mall, almost soaking wet. Su Jiai looked at Xue Xiao and said, "Wait for me here." Xue Xiao didn't know what Su Jiai was going to do. Maybe she wanted to tease him again. Waiting was always a long time, especially for a woman. Standing in the lobby of the shopping mall with wet clothes, like an idiot, Xue Xiao had never thought that he would be in such a mess. He didn't care about the gazes of the people around, but the point was, it was a bit cold. Achoo! He had to sneeze. It was his body's protest, and probably because he had gastroenteritis yesterday and was drenched in the rain today. Xue Xiao. Su Jiai's voice was very loud, as if she was shouting from afar. Behind him, there was a distant shout. He looked back and saw Su Jiai walking toward him slowly. She didn't wear wet clothes, but a new one, a set of student clothes that he didn't expect. But it wasn't the same as before. Su Jiai was a bit out of breath. Xue Xiao was surprised that she could find this kind of clothes in the shopping mall. But she walked towards him just like when she was 17 years old. In front of the school gate, there was a girl wearing a school uniform, smiling and stroking her hair. Su Jiai finally came to Xue Xiao, with a trace of shyness in her eyes. She suddenly leaned on his shoulder, lowering her head and whispering, "Time, has it come back?" Time didn't come back, but stopped here. "Wait for me," Xue Xiao suddenly said in a low voice. After that, he ran up the stairs of the shopping mall. He no longer thought about any moral or rational things, but he had an unprecedented impulse. It turned out that this impulse could tear apart all the thoughts in this kind of impulse. About half an hour later, he came back to Su Jiai wearing a set of nondescript, but at least it looked like a student's clothes, and it looked very funny on him. Xue Xiao pressed his hands on his knees, gasping heavily. Where did you find it? I only found it like this, but he stood up, just put up with it. Su Jiai suddenly kissed him. It was a long kiss. Chapter 545. The advantage of making love was that it was just passing through the clouds. Soon, there were water stains on the road, reflecting the bright sunshine. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was not so hot. After leaving the shopping mall, Xue Xiao held Su Jiai's hand. This time, he took the initiative. They didn't speak. It was like they always held hands on the way home after the evening self-study many years ago. It was either cloudy, Qingtian, windy, or rainy. Su Jiai suddenly said, "It's not a kiss between lovers." Xue Xiao smiled. "I understand." Su Jiai seemed to be more mature than him, both in the past and now. He and she had their own stories in the past 11 years. Xue Xiao thought, Su Jiai's stories are probably more exciting than his. She must be able to find many exciting stories. She was such an active girl. Perhaps in a certain summer or winter in 11 years, she would also take the initiative to invite someone to treat her to something. Just like many years ago, she asked him to give her a piece of cake in the evening of the winter vacation. She just asked if they could catch up with time, but she didn't mean if they could go back to the past. This path that they had walked hand in hand. He was chasing a dream of his youth. Immature, persistent, and once accompanied by painful dreams. They didn't go back to the hotel, but sat at the bus stop for a long time. Shui Xiao said they were not so stupid before. But Su Jiai leaned on his shoulder and said, "You're the real fool. You're so stupid." It was undeniable that Shui Xiao enjoyed this feeling very much. It was like a continuation of the dream, but he knew it was just a short time. Perhaps she knew it. So this time, he took the initiative to say, "Next time, I'll introduce my fiancée to you." Su Jiai thought for a while and said, "Fortunately, you didn't invite me to your wedding, or I would cry." Shui Xiao suddenly said, "Do you want to come to my wedding?" Su Jiai pinched Shui Xiao's ears forcefully and pouted, "No, absolutely no." Shui Xiao laughed. He was teasing her this time. Su Jiai rubbed Shui Xiao's ears, saying softly, "But if it's my wedding, I'll invite you, and you have to come and give me your best blessings." Shui Xiao said, "It's also cruel to a man." Su Jiai suddenly asked, "Don't you want to go back to your place?" Shui Xiao's eyes were fixed on the night sky. He nodded silently and said he wanted to go back. He didn't ask her why she disappeared without a trace, because it felt like it was no longer necessary. Su Jiai said, "Do you want to eat another cake Shui Xiao's way? Beginning and end." That night, Shui Xiao had a good sleep and had a beautiful dream. In his dream, he seemed to have returned to the age of 17. He held the girl's hand and sat on the beach to watch the sunset. Shui Xiao Shui, and Shui asked to the front desk of the hotel and was told that she had checked out early in the morning. Shui Xiao thought it was a good idea to end it here. According to the schedule, he would leave tomorrow, but his work had been postponed for 2 days because of his delay, so he had to spend his time meeting guests. He had to meet local businessmen, hold a small meeting with a branch, and be reprimanded by the head of the company, who asked him to delay for 2 days. "I'll be back tomorrow, around noon. Are you tired these days?" He called Wan Zishan in the evening. It was a long call that could sleep with him. Just like how he would serve and mix the coffee subconsciously, the woman on the other side of the phone had already become a part of his life. It was the most important part of his life in the future. He boarded the plane back. Wan Zishan came to pick him up at the airport. He was exhausted, but felt good to be back. "What's wrong? You look happy after a business trip." Shui Xiao thought for a while and said, "Because I feel that I love you more." Wan Zishan gave a start and rolled her eyes at Shui Xiao. But she was happy. But she didn't say it. "Don't talk nonsense here. The dress has been changed. Let's pick it up before going home. Are you able to take it?" "Yes, I'll take a nap in the car." Shui Xiao shrugged. "But why is it still raining? Hasn't it stopped?" "It stopped for a day in between. Then it started raining again." Wan Zishan said, "But the weather forecast says that it will be Qingtian the day after tomorrow." Shui Xiao carried his luggage and got in the car. Wan Zishan drove, and he fell asleep soon. It took more than an hour to get to the wedding dress shop from the airport. Shui Xiao was in a deep sleep. Wan Zishan woke him up when they arrived. Shui Xiao yawned and got off the car. But he was stunned and looked at the opposite side of the road. "This tree hasn't been cut down?" Wan Zishan glanced at it and thought, maybe it's not easy to do homework because it's raining, so it's put aside. But a lot of leaves fell off, and they didn't clean it up. Shui Xiao looked at it thoughtfully for a while. Many of the treasured archives that were hanging on the wishing tree had been scraped off. He didn't know if the one he had hung on the tree was among the fallen archives. "Are you still reluctant to part with it?" Wan Zishan looked at it with him for a while. Shui Xiao shook his head, holding Wan Zishan's hand and walking into the wedding dress shop. Another certificate was scraped off by the wind, and a lot of leaves fell off. In the evening, Shui Xiao told Wan Zishan that he would go downstairs to buy something. They had lived together for a long time. Shui Xiao didn't remember the exact location of the mysterious shop, but he remembered the general location. But this time, It didn't take him much effort to find it. He shook the rainwater off the umbrella in front of the shop. Last time, he was in a hurry and scared, so he didn't have time to look around carefully. But this time, it didn't seem different. The club boss, sitting on the chair, still gave him a feeling of tranquility. Shueshao nodded to Boss Luo, and then heaved a sigh. He took off the crescent moon necklace and put it on the table in front of Boss Luo. Luochio said, "Customer, didn't I tell you not to worry?" Shueshao took a deep breath. "I don't want someone to suddenly appear in my house. I don't care, but it's not good to frighten Zishan. Sorry, I suddenly appeared last time," Luochio said apologetically. Shueshao shook his head. He always felt that this mysterious boss would do things appropriately. Luochio took the crescent moon necklace and checked it carefully. He suddenly said, "Mr. Shui, you seem to have experienced a good journey. Have you found the answer?" "It's a secret." Shueshao smiled in front of the boss with relief. "That's good." Boss Luo nodded slightly and stood up. "If you need, you're welcome to come again." Shueshao was in awe of this mysterious power. He didn't say anything but nodded hurriedly. Then he took the umbrella and left the place. After coming out, the rain stopped and the night air was fresh. Shueshao took a deep breath and felt more energetic. But he didn't go home immediately. Instead, he took a detour and came to the wishing tree. Shueshao stretched out his hand and touched the tree trunk for a while. Then, he took a deep breath and climbed up with all his strength. Relying on his memory, he found the place where he had climbed up before. It was the place where he hung the treasure certificate for the girl. Back then, because he was afraid that it would be blown away by the wind, he tied it up, unlike others who threw it up. So, the treasure certificate was still there. Shueshao untied it and climbed down again. He didn't plan to take it away. Instead, he pried open some tiles on the sidewalk under the tree and dug deeper. He put the certificate in a box and buried it. The memories of his youth were simply buried in this place. But Shueshao felt a little regretful. He stood up and patted the mud on his hands. He said goodbye to his past self, but didn't have time to say goodbye to Su Jiai. Perhaps she didn't want to hear it, so she left quietly like this? I don't know who didn't grow up. Shueshao sighed and drove away. Then, goodbye to the broken dream for 11 years. Chapter 546. Life was always busy, especially for people who were approaching their wedding date. It was even busier. Those old friends and classmates would always take the excuse of getting married as an excuse to fool around with the groom-to-be. For example, the so-called single night. However, they all knew Shueshao's personality. Therefore, they only booked a small bar for drinking. They were a little tipsy. Shueshao leaned on the sofa with a beer in his hand, looking at the happy faces of the others. It had been 2 days since he came back from the business trip, but he felt it was a long time, mainly because he was tired. At this time, the former class monitor of the high school came over and knocked the beer bottle in his hand. "Don't you want to drink with them?" "Why not?" The class monitor sat beside Shueshao and asked. "Well, I want to be alone." Shueshao smiled. "It's not bad to look at them. Sighing about life? People in the next stage of life are really different." The class monitor showed a "I understand" expression, looking at those classmates with Shueshao and laughing from time to time. "By the way, I helped you send the invitation to our head teacher the other day," the class monitor remembered and said. Shueshao gaped, asking curiously, "You sent?" "Oh, I remember. Zishan told me about it when I was on a business trip. Sorry to trouble you. I should have sent it myself." "What are you talking about?" The class monitor patted Shueshao's shoulder. "The teacher said he is retired and has a lot of time, so he will definitely come." "That's good." Shueshao hadn't seen him for many years, although they still contacted each other on the phone. "Oh, right, there's one more thing." The class monitor looked at Shueshao. "Didn't you ask me to get Su Jiai's contact information?" "I talked with the head teacher that day and found that they were still in touch, so I asked for a phone number and called her. But I don't think she'll come. She's already married and her child is already a few years old." "Got married and had a kid?" Shueshao was stunned. Then, he sighed and drank a mouthful of beer before smiling. He smiled. "I didn't expect that I would be teased. You're really something. You're always able to bring me so many surprises." "What are you giggling about?" The squad leader asked curiously. Xue Xiao clinked his glass with the squad leader and laughed. Life is unpredictable. What else can it be? The old squad leader said, Yeah, the world is unpredictable. Who would have thought that the goddess of our class would get married just like that? What a pity. However, it was normal. After the winter break of the first semester of the third year of high school, she would go abroad to study for university and work. Naturally, she would fall in love, right? Foreigners are more open. Oh, Xue Xiao, do you think foreign men are very good at that? He. Class monitor, can't you be serious? Xue Xiao frowned. He didn't know what to do with this old class monitor. He lowered his head and drank a mouthful of wine. Then, he was stunned as he recalled what the squad leader had just said. He asked in astonishment, What did you just say? You went abroad before the winter vacation? Ah, that's right. He left the country. The old squad leader subconsciously said, Isn't this something that everyone knows? No, impossible. Xue Xiao frowned. Didn't she go abroad during the summer vacation after the college entrance examination? Are you drunk? The squad leader touched Xue Xiao's forehead. You don't have a fever? Confused memory? How could it be? Xue Xiao was unexpectedly excited. It's impossible. Then who was with me in the second semester of the third year of high school? The second semester of the third year of high school? The squad leader thought for a while. Oh, what's Sue? Oh, it's Sue Xian, I remember. Sue Xian, that's right, it's her name. Sue Xian? Xue Xiao was full of doubts. The squad leader nodded. I think you're really drunk. Sue Xian, have you really forgotten her? She's the freshman who joined the class right after the winter vacation. She's quite pretty. Did you guys think that we didn't know about it? However, you're really capable. Our goddess just left, and you got a new one. Gee, you're a hypocrite. Oh, what happened between you and Sue Xian? I've never heard about it from you. How did you break up? You couldn't get into the same university? Sue Xian, Su Jiai. How could it be? Xue Xiao rubbed his forehead. Who is she? Squad leader, are you drunk, or am I drunk? The old squad leader touched his face and said, Me? I'm just warming up. Xue Xiao, what's wrong with you? You keep rubbing your head. Do you feel uncomfortable? Su Xian, Su Jiai. The two names kept circling in his mind like a spiral. I might be drunk. Xue Xiao shook his head. I think so. What nonsense are you talking about? The squad leader nodded. Stay here. I'll get you a cup of hot water. Seeing the squad leader leave, Xue Xiao suddenly stood up and walked to the students. He grabbed one of them. Ming, do you remember Su Jiai and Su Xian? Su Jiai. Of course. She's the ice goddess in our class. The guy called Ming seemed to have drunk too much. He put his hand on Xue Xiao's shoulder and said, Su Xian, I remember. Isn't she the girl who joined our class for a semester? She looks pretty. Oh, have you been together before? I think you've been sneaking around and playing tricks in class. Su Xian Xue Xiao grabbed another one. Lu Kai, do you remember Su Xian? Isn't she your girlfriend? Su Xian Xue Xiao grabbed another one. Before he asked, the guy said, I know Su Xian and Su Jiai. Don't ask me, I want a drink. Ha ha ha. Su Xian. He looked at the hall full of joy. He felt as if he was in another world. Why was it that only he didn't remember Su Xian? Who has Su Xian's contact number? Xue Xiao asked. Some students who were drunk said, I have a Hong's phone number. Do you want? 1,000 yuan for a night. Hey, I have a Shaoli here. She's really good at it. Someone raised his hand high up like a student answering a teacher's question. Me too. Ha. Xue Xiao shook his head slightly and stepped back. He bumped into the squad leader who just came back with hot water. He grabbed the squad leader's hand and asked, Squad leader, can you find Su Xian? This time it's Su Xian? The squad leader was surprised. What do you want to do? Why do you always look for your old lover? Don't talk about this. Tell me first. The class monitor said helplessly. I remember she came here to borrow. She had to go back to the university for the college entrance examination. Well, she didn't come to the graduation party. I don't have her contact number, but maybe you can ask the head teacher. He might be able to find her. Or something. Su Xian? The old man with white hair and presbyopia glasses looked at Shui Xiao with confusion. He had a deep impression of this student. After all, she was taught by him and was admitted to a big university. They even contacted each other occasionally. Yes, teacher. Can you remember her? Shui Xiao asked seriously. Well, no. The teacher shook his head and stood up. Wait a minute. Let me find her. Which batch of students are you from? Batch 03. Batch 03. Batch 03. Oh, I found her. Here she is. The teacher walked to Shui Xiao with a thick hardcover book and opened it, reading page by page. Su Xen. Oh, I found her. The teacher turned to the page. Well, look, Su Xen, right? Transfer student, Su Xen, transfer time, 1 semester. Shui Xiao felt his hands and feet were cold. Teacher, why can't I see your picture? Maybe it's damp? The teacher pushed his glasses. This kind of black and white picture is not well preserved. You reminded me. I'll have to go back and do a good job of protecting it. Teacher, is there really such a person as Su Xen? All the information is here. How can it be missing? The teacher looked at Shui Xiao curiously. Shui Xiao didn't say anything, but continued to read the teacher's information until he found another name, Su Jiai, dropped out in the 2nd semester of grade 12. Reason, study abroad. Chapter 547. We didn't find the person called Su Xen. Please check it clearly. She was in the class of 03 and then went to the 3rd high school to study here. Su Xen, can you check it again? Sorry, sir. We have checked the student records. There is no such person called Su Xen. Did you make a mistake? It's impossible. I did find the information of Su Xen in our school, and it was marked that she came from here. Early in the morning, Shui Xiao drove to the high school that Su Xen studied in. Really? Sorry, sir, we can't help you. If there is nothing else, I still have work to do. Can you? Shui Xiao left the office helplessly and walked out of the door in a daze. He still couldn't understand the whole story. Why all the students, including the head teacher, knew that Su Jiai and Su Xen were 2 different people, except him. Only him. They overlapped and became the same person. Shui Xiao sat in the driver's seat and didn't start the car for a long time. His mind was in a mess. He thought that everything was over after he came back from the business trip. He enjoyed the journey and the dream he had for the past 11 years. He felt that everything was complete. Even if this young love couldn't reach the end, that kiss in the mall to buy back some time was enough. Shui Xiao gritted his teeth, taking out his phone. He asked the class monitor for Su Jiai's contact information. Maybe he could get some information if he contacted her again. But he hesitated for a while, hesitating whether to call her or not. Or check her Facebook first. Thinking of this, Shui Xiao finally opened the personal page of Su Jiai. On the first page, the first photo was a selfie of a woman wearing a yellow helmet standing on the coastline. The woman's face was similar to Su Jiai in his memory. Unexpectedly, her hair was cut short, and she was much fatter. It was totally not the Su Jiai he met in the hotel during his business trip. And the time of this photo was exactly the first day of his business trip. Shui Xiao browsed through the photos one by one, from her holding her child to her wedding photos, photos of her and her boyfriend, photos of her life when she was studying abroad. Little by little, this woman, who was already a mother, gradually returned to the appearance of Su Jiai in Shui Xiao's memory, her appearance in high school. Who did I meet? Shui Xiao leaned on the steering wheel for a long time. In the end, he mustered up the courage to make an international call. Hi, who are you? Is it Su Jiai? I am. You are. The woman's confused voice came from the other side. It's me, Shui Xiao. Ah, Shui Xiao. Long time no see. The woman on the other side of the phone smiled and said, well, congratulations. I heard that you're getting married soon, right? The class leader called me a few days ago. I'm really sorry, but I can't leave my work, so I can't attend your wedding. It was a very polite, courteous, and formulaic answer. That kind of alienation made Shui Xiao's hands and feet cold. It's okay. You got married and had a kid, but I didn't give you my blessings. Shui Xiao replied stiffly. Shui Xiao, I'm sorry, I'm busy here. The woman hurriedly said, sorry. Keep in touch. Okay? Let's meet again if we have a chance to go back to China. Okay? Beep. Xue Xiao went home and stayed at home alone for the whole afternoon until it was completely dark. He didn't turn on a light, just turned on the TV and didn't change the channel. He just watched the pictures flashing one by one, but he couldn't remember them. He didn't even know what he was watching. His mind was filled with the second half of the senior year. Wan Zishan came back from work and turned on the light. She saw Xue Xiao sitting on the sofa and watching the TV alone, but his eyes seemed to be out of focus. She opened her mouth, but put down her things and walked to the back of the sofa. She pressed her hands on Xue Xiao's shoulders and kneaded for a while, lowering her head and asking, is this strength okay? Xue Xiao patted her hands and turned around to kneel on the sofa, hugging Wan Zishan without saying a word. Are you tired today? I didn't go to work today. Something on your mind? Don't ask. Just let me hug you like this. I feel it's real. Xue Xiao said softly. Wan Zishan smiled softly and hugged his head. They hugged each other for a long time, and then Xue Xiao fell asleep on the sofa. In the morning, Xue Xiao woke up with a headache and found himself covered with a blanket. Wan Zishan had gone to work. She just left a rich breakfast and a note on the table. Remember to eat breakfast. You didn't eat anything last night. I've asked for a leave for you in the company, saying you need to have a good rest if you don't feel well. Xue Xiao sat down, asking himself what was bothering him while eating the food in front of him silently. He found that he had been eating this woman's breakfast for 4 or 5 years. But at this moment, he felt a sense of guilt that he had never felt before. He was very embarrassed, very uncomfortable, and very uncomfortable. He decided to take a walk on the street. Unconsciously, he walked to Su Jiai's apartment building, standing there and staring at the empty suite for a long time. Then, he silently turned around and left. He didn't know where he was going, so he just walked for the time being, walking the path that he had walked with that girl for an entire semester. At that time, wow, arcade, I want to play Street Fighter. She waved her small fist and said, Are you a girl? This sugar-coated ha is not delicious. I won't buy it anymore. She was angry. It was the third one. Xue Xiao, do you think we should adopt a kitten? Build a house here and feed it after school every day? She was curious. Who will clean the shit? Xue Xiao, do you want to buy me a piece of cake? It's the first time that you initiated a conversation with me. Xue Xiao stopped. It turned out that he had walked to the wedding dress shop. He subconsciously looked at the other side of the road. The guardrail around the banyan tree was still there. The sky was still gloomy, as if it was going to rain. It was almost 6 o'clock in the evening, and they had walked for half a day. So, it hasn't been cut. Xue Xiao stared at the wishing tree across the road. He couldn't even see its shadow. Only a few yellow leaves and withered leaves were hanging on the blackened branches. Xue Xiao suddenly had an unspeakable feeling. He suddenly ran to the other side of the road, ignoring the surprise of the passers-by, and started to dig up the soil under the tree, digging out a treasure certificate buried here. He patted the soil on the box and opened it again. Looking at the treasure certificate, he suddenly ran on the long street. Su Jiai, I want to be with you forever. Su Jiai, which university do you want to go to? Which university? It's a high score, but I'll have a try. I'll definitely get in. I just want to know, who was the person who accompanied me? I don't even know who the person I love so much is. I don't want to be unable to remember you when I'm old. Ding! The doorbell rang. Xue Xiao pushed open the old door, standing in the hall, while panting. This time, he seemed to find the place faster. The club owner seemed to be surprised. He slowly put down the book in his hand and raised his head. Sir, what's the matter? Xue Xiao shook his head, adjusting his breath while walking towards Boss Luo. If no one knew the answer, then this club owner must know it. If no one could give him the answer, then this mysterious club owner must know it. The person you arranged for me to meet is not the real Su Jiai, right? Boss Luo said indifferently. Sir, it doesn't seem to be important, because your request is to see the girl of your first love again, isn't it? I just want to know the answer. Xue Xiao said in a low voice. The real answer. Luoqiu thought for a while, standing up and walking to Xue Xiao, which made Xue Xiao take a step back. Luoqiu stopped and didn't continue to approach him, but said in a low voice, So, Do you want to buy the answer this time? Looking at Xue Xiao's hesitant expression, Luo Qiu said calmly, I remember you said that you don't want to destroy anything that will ruin your future relationship with your wife for this matter. Then, whether it's your lifespan, health, or any kind of emotion, you won't treat it as something to be sold to us, right? Seeing Xue Xiao didn't speak, Boss Luo continued in a low voice. So, are you willing to break your previous decision in order to know the answer? For the answer of the past and your future, what will you choose? It was a difficult and painful choice. It was like putting the girl and Wan Zishan in front of him, and he could only choose one. It was so difficult. He tightened his grip on the box in his hand, took a deep breath, and said, I still have things that I can sell that won't affect the future. I don't believe that it's enough to exchange for an answer. Don't you think it's a loss if you lose your childhood happiness and can't remember it in the future? Boss Luo asked curiously. Xue Xiao said faintly, happy memories can be created again. I believe I can, but I don't want to not know the answer for my whole life. If I don't know, I can't face Zishan anymore. You're indeed a businessman, very careful. Boss Luo smiled, so the contract is made. Customer, please come to me. With you. Xue Xiao stopped before he finished his words because he was no longer in the shop, but on the road. This is... Xue Xiao looked at the road in astonishment. Why did you bring me here? Wedding dress shop. Wishing tree. Under the tree. The answer you want is here. Boss Luo pointed at the wishing tree. Please put your hand on it. I'll let you know the answer. Xue Xiao couldn't help but believe in the boss's words. Slowly, he put his hand on the trunk of the fallen tree. Chapter 548. I don't have a name and I don't know who I am. I only know that unknowingly, I gained consciousness. I could see many people. Later on, I learned that they're called humans. They walked by me all the time, and sometimes they would stop by me, chatting. Slowly, I found that I liked listening to their conversations, because when they were chatting, I could learn many things. Interesting things, things to complain about, gossiping about others, and good things to say about others. Everything, I would listen attentively. Even if these humans didn't know, I could hear what they were saying. But I was still willing because I have no way to leave this place. Because I know that I'm just a tree. My roots are here very deep and will be even deeper in the future. But I suddenly had an idea. If I can leave this place, I want to walk around. I want to see the places that these humans mentioned when they were chatting and eat the things that they said were delicious. But when will I be able to leave this place? Summer is a little hot, so I like the rain. But winter is a little cold, and many leaves have fallen. So annoying. When will I be able to leave this place? I have been here for many years. So lonely. Recently, I have one more thing that I hate. It is really annoying. These humans, what are they throwing at me? One by one, they are so heavy, they will crush my branches, okay? Annoying. Super annoying. Don't throw any more, okay? Oomph. I will not help you fulfill your wishes. How can I help you fulfill your wishes? When will I be able to leave this place? It is winter again, so annoying. Where did the sparrows go? Why are they not coming anymore? The number of people going out also decreased. I really hope that summer will come soon. When will I be able to leave this place? Later on, I met a fellow. For the first time, I met someone who could talk to me. Oh, right. She said that she was not a human, but a monster, also a kind of living creature. She said that her surname was Long, and she planned to stay here for a long time. She also told me that I was actually a tree spirit, and told me to slowly stay like this, and that one day I will be able to leave this place. I finally know what I am. I am happier than ever, looking forward to the day when I can leave this place. Then, unknowingly, 50 years passed. Just like what the woman surnamed Long told me, I can really leave this place. But only a little. I can only walk about 10 meters away from here. However, I'm already very happy, super happy. The only thing I'm not happy about is that those humans are hanging more and more things on my body. The old ones fell off, and the new ones took their place. Forget it. I don't want to worry about this anymore. I want to cultivate. I want to go further and further away. I can finally go far away. Today, I officially reached the 10-kilometer range. It was my first time walking around here. More than 50 years had passed since then. According to the human language, am I an old woman? Of course not. You humans, when are you going to stop giving me things? I really can't help you. So, don't blame me, okay? Recently, a very mischievous human child came. He's really too mischievous. I've never seen such a child before. What was this guy doing? He even climbed on my body. Although there were many people who climbed on top of me over the years. None of them were as bad as you, okay? You actually stood on top of me and peed on the people on the ground. Peed on my body. Pee. Unbelievable. Damn it. Haha. Are you beaten? Such a troublemaker. Are you beaten? Is it painful? Do you know you are wrong? You deserve it. Cry. I'm so happy to see you cry. Ha ha. His name is Xue Xiao. I've never seen such a naughty and annoying guy. Xue Xiao, do you know how many new twigs and leaves have fallen off because of you crawling on my body every day? But since you helped me to remove those treasures, I'll let you do whatever you want. Humph, thank me. Today, Xue Xiao didn't come. I felt that something was missing, so I was unhappy. It turned out that he caught a cold. Humans were so fragile. But he seemed to grow taller. Sigh, grow up quickly. Don't bother me all day. Look, I have to worry about you all day, so I can't concentrate on my cultivation recently. Aya, you little bastard, you climbed so high today, I'll fall to your death. You really fell. Little bastard. I clenched my teeth and broke my own branches, finally hooking this little bastard. So painful. You little bastard. You only know how to cause trouble. So painful. If I knew it was so painful, I wouldn't have saved you. Fall to your death. Let's see if you still dare to be so naughty. But it's good that you're fine. Next time, don't climb so high, little fool. You little bastard. Why didn't you climb up today? You almost fell yesterday, so you finally know fear? Not bad. You are worth teaching. Wait, little bastard, what are you doing? You want to throw something at me? Little bastard. How dare you? Big tree. Mom said that God saved me, but I don't think so. You saved me. Thank you. Let me make a wish for you too. Nobody has ever made a wish for me. Never had. Little bastard. Why am I crying? Little bastard. I hate you so much. You made me cry. But thank you. Today, Xue Xiao didn't come. He was unhappy. Today, Xue Xiao came. Since he came, he would stay for a while. Recently, he didn't come much. You started to play other things like football or video games. Humph. You only know how to play. You better not come. Annoying. Xue Xiao is the most annoying. Will you come tomorrow? I think if I appear in front of you, what will you do? So annoying. Since you don't come, I will go to see you. I didn't cultivate for nothing. Humph. Am I awesome? This was Xue Xiao's junior high school. What was the feeling of going to school? Aya, little bastard, don't rush so fast. Why are you playing football so barbaric? Look, you fell. Who asked you to be so barbaric? Is it painful? Xue Xiao. Come on. Xue Xiao. Go. Pass. Yes. That's it. Score. I jumped up happily. The people around me couldn't see me, so I could be as happy as I want. Yeah. If I could go to them and play with you, how good would that be? Today, you were scolded by your mother. Who asked you to make trouble? Humph. Since you are so miserable, I will help you. There's a tree hole nearby. What do you want to say? It's just a tree hole. I don't feel pain. You've already rarely come here anymore. You're in high school now. Su Jiai, I like you. You? What did you say in the tree hole? Who is Su Jiai? I don't want to hear it. Don't say it. Okay, I know you have a girl you like. You have been following her all day. Do you think I don't know? I get angry when I see you. Don't go this way. I don't want to see you. Go after her if you like her so much. Bastard. Wishing tree. I heard that the wishes you make here are all very effective. Maybe I will make a wish before I leave. I hope I can enter a good university. Why do you want to make a wish here? It's your first time here, and you heard it from others. You want me to help you? Are you kidding me? You are an ugly woman. If you leave, what about Xue Xiao? He hasn't confessed to you yet. Don't go, okay? Xue Xiao will be sad. Please. Little fool, why are you still going this way? She's going to leave soon. Do you know that? She left. She went abroad. Just like that. I know. You don't need to say it to my tree hole. I know. Little fool. My heart hurts. I want to cry. I really want to cry. You're crying, okay? Shui Xiao, don't cry, okay? Please don't cry, okay? Please, I will do whatever you want. Please, don't let me see your sad face. Really, I'm begging you. Please, can you help me this once? I couldn't bear Shui Xiao's painful eyes. These days, I had been watching him from outside and hiding in the house. So I made a decision. I found a monster surnamed Long and begged her to help me once. But she didn't seem to be willing. So I kept begging her, and bothering her. Only this time. Don't do it again. But she still told me seriously, humans have their boundaries. So do monsters and elves. If you cross the boundary, you will be the one who suffers. No, I won't regret it. I asked her to help me seal Shui Xiao's memory of Su Jiai going abroad so that he wouldn't remember it. Today, I wore a beautiful dress and showed my face in front of a human for the first time. No, it was another human's appearance. This human was called Su Jiai. I leaned on my body and waited for a long time. I was so nervous. I saw him. I was still nervous. I was afraid that he would see something, but I still said, Shui Xiao, can you treat me a piece of cake? Everyone in the class thought I was Su Xin. Only Shui Xiao thought I was Su Jiai when he saw me. I knew Lord Long had a sharp tongue, but a soft heart. He said it would only be this time, but he still helped me. Thank you. I started to go to school with Shui Xiao. We studied together and finished school together. This little bastard, he didn't dare to hold my hand for such a long time. Be brave. Do you want me to take the initiative? I took the initiative. I want to die. I took the initiative. We walked through every day hand in hand. We ate at every stall together. We watched the sunset together. We played games together secretly. Together. Then you gave me a second ultimatum. You said that you wanted to be with Su Jiai forever. Su Jiai is not me. I also want to be with you forever. Forever and ever. But you don't know, I am not her. So painful. So painful. So painful. I really regretted it. This feeling, I don't want it. I don't want it. I really don't want it. But as long as you are happy, suddenly one day, I fell down when Shui Xiao just left. I was never like this. I used all my strength to crawl back to my body. I felt so tired, as if I was going to explode. I didn't even have time to say anything before I fainted. When I woke up, I saw Master Long frowning and sighing as he looked at me. I really shouldn't have agreed to your request. Su Xian, do you know? You should end it and go back to your original body to cultivate. Do you know that human love is like a tribulation to you, and it's the most difficult tribulation to resolve? If you continue like this, as a tree spirit, you won't be able to take human form one day. But you have to cut off your love tribulation before you can reach the next stage of cultivation. I don't want it. No matter if you want it or not, I won't let it continue. I will correct that human's memory and erase all traces of you in the human world. Lord Long, do you want to see me disintegrate myself here? Are you threatening me? I knew she was angry and I couldn't breathe because of her huge power. I cried, I really will. She kicked me out of the door and didn't say anything to me. I could see that she was disappointed in me, but I knew that she didn't care. What I was thinking now was that it was Shui Xiao's birthday soon. What should I give him? Lord Long was right. I didn't know why, but my body was getting weaker day by day. There seems to be something in my body that keeps devouring my strength, my life. I faintly feel it, but no matter how it grows, it will devour all of me, and I will disappear. Then, something bad will appear. I was scared. I didn't have a good rest. I was getting weaker and weaker. What would I do today? I was so scared that my body was trembling. So scared that my body was trembling. I strangled Shui Xiao's neck when he was sleeping. I didn't know what I was doing at that time, but I knew that my purpose was to kill him. It was that thing. It was that thing. It was my instinct. My instinct didn't want me to be swallowed by it. It urged me to kill it, to kill Shui Xiao and make it disappear. My instinct, I was so scared. Shui Xiao, I was really scared. Because I knew that it had grown to the extent that it couldn't be destroyed, my instinct was just resisting. But how could I do that? If I was swallowed by it and forgot about you, I would rather kill myself. I dug out my own tree heart. It contained all my strength and was what I relied on to survive. In that case, even if it swallowed me, it wouldn't get anything. When I died, it would die with me. I made it into a crescent moon and gave it to him, the only human I loved in my life. I couldn't persist anymore. I tried my best to accompany him every day before I disappeared. I told him that I wanted to enter a very good university. I wanted him to study hard and enter that university. I hoped that he could have a good future. I persisted until the college entrance examination. But I couldn't persist anymore. I slowly melted into my body. My consciousness could no longer leave my body. Day by day, I gradually couldn't see anything and gradually couldn't hear anything. Sometimes I woke up, and sometimes I fell asleep. I didn't know when I would wake up again. Whenever you passed by, I would open my eyes, even if it was just a glance at you. I knew you were in the college entrance examination. I knew everything. I know all about it. Why did you do that? Finally, I heard Lord Long's voice. She should be by my side right now. You'll never recover after digging out your own tree heart. Your consciousness will fade away and you'll become an ordinary tree. You won't even know what you are after a few years. I said, I'm Sue Xin from Sue Xin. Master Long stood in front of me for a long time. In the end, she sighed and said softly, I won't erase the human's memories of the past few months. I will take care of your disappearance. Just give that human a dream. Thank you, Lord Long, silly kid. Finally, I couldn't hear anything anymore, and I couldn't see anything either. I didn't know if he was living well. I didn't know if he would come to my side again and talk to my tree hole after Su Jai left. I didn't know. The surroundings became very dark, very heavy, very heavy. Something locked me, and I knew that I could no longer leave this dark place. Xue Xiao, will you have a good life? Have you met a girl you like, Xue Xiao? I want to see you again. One day I woke up. I could see and hear things again. There was a warm feeling on my body. That night, I saw a very beautiful light flashing across the sky, just like fireworks. Those little bits of starlight fell on my body, allowing me to recover some of my strength. I was surprised that I could wake up and didn't forget the past. But I couldn't go too far. I was only 2 or 3 meters away. I was very tired, just like before. I was still very weak. Those starlights only gave me a little strength. The surroundings changed a lot. Has it been a long time? Xue Xiao, has he grown up? Has he become old? How many years have I slept? I woke up and slept again. I seemed to be able to stay awake for a while. Xue Xiao. I suddenly heard this name from a woman's mouth. It woke me up. This name woke me up. I opened my eyes and saw him. He's grown up a lot. But I recognized him at first sight. Little bastard, he has gained so much weight. I know it has been 11 years. I know you're going to get married soon. You bought the dress and took the photos in the bridal shop opposite. Oh, come closer. The curtain is blocking. I can't see you. You are smiling happily. The woman you are holding must like you very much. I'm a little jealous. But it's so good to see you again. I really want to hold your hand once again. I want to, but I found that it's good to look at him like this. I always wake up and stare at the bridal shop in a daze, waiting for him to appear. But it won't happen too many times. I think that the strength given by the starlight will disappear soon. I will almost return to that dark place. Maybe I will never wake up again. But thanks to it, I can see it again. Miss Sue Xin, would you like to come out? I have been sleeping for many days. Suddenly, I heard such a voice. I even had the strength to open my eyes. Then I saw a guy wearing a mask. He asked me if I want to see Xue Xiao again. Xue Xiao can see me and explain the reason to me. I agreed. I agreed without thinking. Xue Xiao, this is your last request. How can I refuse? How can I see you holding a grudge for the past? I want to give you a happy future. I will. This is the last time I can do something for you. I suddenly feel so happy. So, I will appear in front of you with the identity of Su Jai again. Finally, I will help you to understand the dream 11 years ago, okay? Little bastard. I really can do it again. Damn, I cry again. We have a wonderful holiday. Little bastard, you said you want to introduce your wife to me. Do you want me to cry in front of you? But I forgive you because you took the initiative to hold my hand this time. Shue Xiao. Have you let go this time? I know you've grown up. You're not that naughty little bastard anymore. In the end, I left without saying goodbye. Who asked you to use the tree heart I gave you? Who asked me? Who asked me not to say goodbye? It was not an answer, but her whole life, Su Xian's whole life, all her memories, all her feelings, all her pain and sadness. Her happiness. Shue Xiao found that there were 2 lines of tears on his face when he came to himself. He had never felt so heartbroken since he found it. She said she was lonely and cut him. She said he was a little bastard and cut him. She said you didn't come today, so she was unhappy and cut him. She said she saw you again, so she cut him. Shue Xiao felt that his heart was like a sieve with thousands of holes. No matter how hard it beat, it couldn't send the blood that could bring warmth to his whole body. There was a person, even though it was not a person, but a tree spirit. There was such a tree spirit who had been guarding him silently since he was a child. It accompanied him to grow up, to be with him through his sadness and happiness. You are so silly. Is it worth it for me? His eyes were red, and his voice was hoarse. Is it worth it? I'd rather I'd never appear in your life than have you die. The guilt and pain tore his rationality apart, making him forget everything that was important to him. He looked at the club owner with despair, saying with a hoarse voice, "Tell me, you can let Su Exin go back to the past. Tell me, what do you want to take away from me? Anything, 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 anything. I don't want her. I don't want her to die." He knelt on the ground. Big drops of tears dripped down. I can't let go for 11 years. But I didn't know she was Su Exin. I didn't know what she did for me. Why didn't she tell me? What is the difference between humans and monsters? I only know that I hurt her, harming the one who silently protected me and gave up everything for me. My life, my soul, anything is fine, anything is fine. Luochio suddenly said, "Customer, don't you care about your fiancé?" Shue Xiao raised his head and asked back, "If I were you, what would you choose?" One was deeply in love with me and gave me everything. The other was someone I was prepared to spend the rest of my life with. If you were me, what would you choose? You tell me. Sorry, I can't understand it. Luochio shook his head. Shue Xiao said sadly, "I can't pretend that I don't know. In this life, I can't pretend that I don't know. This kind of pain and guilt, this kind of unforgettable feeling will only devour me as time passes, step by step. It's unfair to Zishan, but it's unfair to her. I'm wrong. I shouldn't pursue my dream. No. If I didn't pursue it, I wouldn't even know everything. I wouldn't even know what Su Xian did to me." So he looked at Luochio and cried. It's the real cruelty to her, crueler than anything else. So, I can't forgive myself for not doing anything. I can't forgive myself for pretending that I don't know anything and living my life. I can't hurt 2 people I love at the same time. I see. Luochio nodded. Then let's talk about the details. Customer, Su Xian is a tree spirit born by nature. She's more precious than a normal human being. Even if you sacrifice everything, you can only prolong her life. How long? 30 years, 30 years, 30 years. Shue Xiao stood up. 30 years. Maybe she can find Lord Long again. Maybe he can bring her more opportunities. 30 years. You've been with me for 30 years. I'll give you 30 years. Su Xian, I won't let you die like this. Boss, this deal No. Someone from behind jumped on him and hugged him tightly. No, Shue Xiao. No, I don't want it. Su Xian, it's you. Shue Xiao tried to turn around, but he could only see a pair of hands in front of his chest. The hands were faintly glowing, as if they would disappear at any time. Don't turn around, I beg you. Don't turn around. Why? Don't you want me to see the real you? No means no. You know I'm capricious. If you turn around, I won't come out anymore. Shue Xiao gently grasped the hands in front of his chest and nodded silently. He found that the boss was gone. as if he was leaving some time for them. They hugged for a long time. There seemed to be no one on the street. He didn't care, only hoping that the time could be longer. Suexin, I finally know your name. Yes, it's my name. Soon, you'll recover soon, very soon. That pair of hands suddenly broke free from his grasp and covered his mouth forcefully. He felt her hug on his back tighten, and he also heard her sad voice at this moment. I'll kill myself, I will. Shui Xiao's body shook. I really do know how to do it. Shui Xiao couldn't help crying. Why did she say it in such a relaxed tone? It's so unfair. I've done so much, but you didn't do anything for me. So annoying. Why did she say it in such a relaxed tone? Why? Shui Xiao, can you do one thing for me too? He pulled her hand away from his mouth. He knew better than anyone else in the world what she wanted him to do. No, I really don't want it. Do you want me to leave with regret? No, I really don't want it. Boss, now you. That hand once again covered his lips. It was very, very light. Shui Xiao, I'm crying. I can't stop my tears. Do you know? I can kill myself now. You really don't want it? Why, in the end, I'm still so powerless. You're so cruel to me. Do you know, Su Xian? So, promise me, okay? Shui Xiao answered softly with a sob. You don't seem sincere. Shui Xiao nodded vigorously and replied with a heavy Then, she put down her hands and hugged his chest gently. She leaned her face on his shoulder and said softly, Don't miss me. Go back to your original life. Shui Xiao clenched his fists and trembled slightly. Is this your last wish? Yes. Shui Xiao said softly, I don't know anyone called Su Xian. I only had a crush on Su Jia in high school. But she's married now. I'm a bad girl. I don't know Su Xian. Okay. I don't know Su Xian. I only love one person now. She's my fiancée. We're gonna get married soon. Okay. I don't know Su Xian. Later, I'll tell my kids about my love story with their mother. Okay. I don't know Su Xian later. I won't pass by here, never. Okay. His hand was disappearing bit by bit, and the feeling of being hugged also became lighter bit by bit, becoming faintly discernible. Okay, the words were still lingering in his ears. Shui Xiao couldn't see the girl from the beginning to the end. He stood there silently, even though he knew that nobody was hugging him anymore. Once again, he dug up the bricks under the tree and carefully buried the box in his hand. Then, he sat under the tree and leaned against it. I'll remember this promise for the rest of my life. Su Xian. He leaned against the tree and fell into a deep sleep. At this moment, the fluorescent light started to spread on the wishing tree, starting from where Shui Xiao was leaning against it. In an instant, all the remaining yellow leaves on the tree were scattered. They seemed to be caught by the girl's hand, and then gently covered the sleeping man's body. Layer by layer, it was like a quilt, until the last yellow leaf. The fluorescent lights faded away like fireflies in summer. They completely separated from the tree and gradually gathered together to form a figure. A girl's figure. Boss, can you come out for a while? She called softly. What's the matter? Miss Su Xian? You're so mysterious. You came as soon as I called you. As a tree spirit, she opened her eyes widely and said unbelievably, Oh, if I could meet you earlier, I wouldn't be so miserable. Luoqiu found this tree spirit was really gentle, so gentle that it was a bit cruel. I'm just joking. She chuckled. Seriously, let's discuss something, okay? You have to agree, because I'm good at torturing people. Are you afraid? As long as it's the request of the customer. Luoqiu said softly. Thanks to the starlight last time, I recovered a little. She thought for a while and said, I wanted to keep a little bit so that I wouldn't disappear so quickly. But now, can I buy something with this weak soul of a tree spirit? Previously, there was a guest that I respected. It made itself disappear. Luoqiu said suddenly. He dispersed himself and brought some vitality to all the flowers and trees in the city. Really no wonder. She shook her head. Let's talk about the thing we discussed. Customer, please go ahead. She suddenly cried silently with big drops of tears. She sobbed, I'm so annoying. I'm crying again. So annoying. So annoying. So annoying. Boss, can you buy back Xue Xiao's childhood happiness? Yes. Can I bless him to live a happy life with his wife in the future? She cried like a child. Yes. She wiped away the tears on her face over and over again, but the tears just wouldn't stop. Can, can, can I make him forget, truly forget everything about me? Are you sure? Boss Luo asked softly. Don't let me say it again. Okay. She choked with sobs. I see. Boss Luo nodded. Everything will be as you wish, my respected customer. She came to Xue Xiao's side, wiping away all her tears to make herself clean. Then she bent down and kissed Xue Xiao's lips. It was a kiss that seemed to be able to freeze time. Xue Xiao, thank you for being with me. You don't make my summer restless. You don't make my winter cold. You make my heart beat again and again. Thank you, she said softly. Please don't remember. Remember, I love you the most when you are not with me. Finally, she looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath and opening her hands. I'm leaving this time. I don't want to leave. Ha ha ha. How much happiness and sadness were there in her laughter. Looking at this scene, Luo Xiao suddenly gently pinched his forehead, then gently shook his head and took a deep breath. He walked to Xue Xiao and opened his palm. A heart-shaped pendant appeared on his palm. Tree Spirit Su Xin looked at the boss's action with astonishment. He pushed the necklace away, and then the necklace was hung on Xue Xiao's neck again. Isn't this necklace? Just take it as, Luoqiu said softly, a gift. Suddenly, Tree Spirit faced Luo Qiu, clasped his hands in front of him, and bowed deeply to this mysterious boss. Really thank you. The last thank you. Thank you for being so gentle. The tranquility of the long street faded away. At 10 o'clock in the evening, there were pedestrians again. However, there was a man who was sleeping under a tree whose leaves were emitting light. He seemed to be sleeping peacefully. He was smiling. He was probably having a good dream. But why were there tears? I feel like dying. Xue Xiao's head was extremely heavy. He woke up in the hospital. The doctor said that he fell asleep while hugging a tree. He even got wet in the middle of the night. Fortunately, he was sent to the hospital in time. Otherwise, it would have been more serious. Therefore, it was fortunate that he only had a fever and a weak body. His head was still very heavy. Why did he hug the wishing tree and sleep for a whole night? He couldn't remember anything. He felt that he had forgotten something important. He subconsciously played with the crescent necklace. Where did he get this necklace? Forget it. He had been wearing it for a long time. I'll just keep wearing it. I feel like wearing it will give me a very cool and comfortable feeling. At this time, the door of the ward was pushed open. It was Wan Zishan. How do you feel? Wan Zishan put a big bag in front of the bed and asked softly, I'm fine. I should be discharged in 2 days. Xue Xiao smiled. It won't affect our wedding. What's this? It's such a big bag. Wan Zishan smiled mysteriously, then took out the thing in the bag. It was a flower pot with a bare root in the soil. This is... Xue Xiao suddenly had an indescribable feeling. Wan Zishan chuckled. Look at you, you hugged the wishing tree and slept for a whole night. I don't know what's wrong with you, but the tree was cut down today. I went to check it and found it was still alive, so I took it away secretly. Since you don't want to give it up, you can plan again. Speaking of which, fortunately, I was fast enough. At that time, there was a guy who wanted to take it away. I remember seeing it somewhere, a wedding dress shop. I can't remember. Xue Xiao didn't hear Wan Zishan's words, but just stared at the small root blankly. What's wrong? Wan Zishan leaned on Xue Xiao's shoulder and asked. Xue Xiao grabbed Wan Zishan's hand, shaking his head and smiling. Nothing, I'm thinking. I'll tell you more about me and the wishing tree later. Well, you have to plan it quickly. Well, let's plan it together. Xue Xiao suddenly untied the crescent moon necklace, carefully hanging it on the small root. He felt that they were a perfect match. Well, the early bird beat us to it. Luoqiu stood at the site where the workers cut down the tree, looking at the wood pieces that were cut and placed on the ground, shaking his head slightly. Miss Maid accompanied him at this moment, suddenly smiling. It's still alive. The vitality of trees is really strong. Well, forget it. Luochio chuckled. Anyway, there are better things left. Boss Luo climbed over the guardrail, but all the workers acted like they didn't see him. Boss Luo walked to an intact tree trunk, reaching out his hand and knocking on it. The tree trunk, which was still fresh and moist, broke into two just like that. At the place where the tree trunk split apart, a small treasure archive was unexpectedly embedded in the tree trunk. Boss Luo took it down gently, shaking it. She lost the tree heart, so she used it as her heart. After opening the archive, there were some words written in crooked characters. Wishing tree, I hope you be healthy. Shueshao wishes you. Chapter 549. After nearly 3 hours of boiling donkey hide gelatin, ginseng, astragalus, Panax nodo ginseng, and dozens of other herbs, the monster realm elder Chichikamaya turned off the stove. Of course, this stove was not an ordinary stove. As for these herbs, naturally, they were not things that could be bought in ordinary pharmacies. As for these great tonics, was it appropriate to stew them in such a messy way? Let those old Chinese medicine doctors and this monster realm elder talk about what the inner part of the compendium of Materia Medica was. Lord Long, your medicine. Hearing the old turtle's voice, Shinryu, who had gradually gotten used to this, suddenly frowned as if he had seen a ghost. Although she was the one who had instructed him to prepare the medicine to replenish his blood and qi, the taste was enough to make him wish he was dead. What kind of feeling was it? It was like fresh and sweet orange juice mixed with sewage from the sewer, and then squeeze a layer of cream and coffee on top. As for why Kelowna Shinryu could describe this taste so accurately, probably because he was bored recently and watched a show about the so-called strongest man on earth, who stood at the top of the food chain and was influenced by it. Put it down first. Long Shirua sighed, looking a little lonely at this time. Chichikamaya glanced at the computer screen that Long Shirua was looking at. It was a news. The 100-year-old wishing tree in the community was cut down, and the residents spontaneously organized a commemorative activity. Long Shirua knew Chichikamaya's little move, shook her head, and said, "This tree used to be a very promising tree spirit. Unfortunately, it fell into the tribulation of love and ruined itself. At that time, She sighed slowly, turned off the computer screen, and drank the medicine brought by Chichikamaya. But this time, it seemed to be a little more painful in the heart than in the mouth. It was also a little bitter. Chichikamaya waited quietly for a moment, then suddenly said, "My lord, I have to go on a long trip in a few days. I'm afraid I can't serve you for the time being. But don't worry, I've already prepared enough medicinal ingredients. My lord, you can decoct and consume them yourself." Far away, Long Shirua frowned. "What do you want?" Chichikamaya said seriously, "My lord, the once-in-a-decade ceremony of the cultivation world is about to begin. The Xinyuan Palace is the guardian palace of the human emperor, so I can't not go. All these years, the Xinyuan Palace has been missing a human emperor, so, as a servant, I can only attend on behalf of my master." Long Shirua is stunned. She rubs her forehead. She has lost too much blood recently. She often has headaches and dizziness, and she feels weak all over. It turns out that another 10 years have passed. Those guys in the world of cultivation are really not giving up on Peng Lai. After so many years, it has slowly become another form of communication. Chichikamaya said calmly, "Everyone knows that it's illusory, but it's just a ceremony. Why don't we do it? At least we have something to remember." "Go ahead." Long Shirua shook her head. "Anyway, I'm not interested in this matter. Besides, it's not convenient to talk about it now. My lord, I'll take Ghost Baby and some of my subordinates with me. I'm afraid I can't protect you personally." Chichikamaya took out his bead and put it in front of Long Shirua. "However, I've implanted the skill 3 times in it. You can use the virtual shadow last time by dripping a drop of Shinryu's blood in it each time. But remember, Shinryu's power is too strong. You can only use 1 drop at a time. This skill can't support you if you use more. It's better than nothing." Long Shirua nodded, "But it should be enough to protect myself." "Thank you, old turtle." Chichikamaya bowed respectfully. My lord, please be careful. Remember, remember, there were more than 7 billion people in the world. That was to say, the things that happened every day were as numerous as the sand in the Ganges. For example, there was such a group of people in a remote mountain forest in a peninsular country. They wore the clothes of ancient warriors, but most of their hairstyles were modern. There were 13 of them, from young to middle-aged men. They wore the same clothes and held the same straight knives. They were running in the forest, chasing after a figure in front of them. Of course, during the process of chasing, there was no lack of angry curses because they could not catch up no matter how hard they tried. Moreover, the person running in front of them not only killed their master, but also stole a secret treasure that they had been guarding for nearly 200 years. What was more abominable was that the murderer was born in this place. At least her parents were the descendants of this place. They didn't know what she had been through all these years. She was only around 20 years old, but her hair had already turned white and she had such terrifying strength. Their master couldn't even hold on for more than 30 seconds before he was defeated by her. Don't run. We'll never let you go. Accept your punishment. You murderer. Pop. She blew a big bubble out of the bubble gum in her mouth, then burst it and began to chew again. Different from the men who were chasing her, she was as calm as if she was taking a stroll. This was Miss Nero from the Michael Club. I don't care if you say that I stole something, but I won't take the blame for being a murderer. Nero yawned and said, that guy couldn't beat me, so he vomited blood and died after he admitted defeat. How can you blame me? You must have used a despicable method to kill our master. Our master didn't do his best. You must have done it. Huh? Nero suddenly stopped and turned around. She clapped her hand behind her back, and a strange sword in the painting tube rose into the sky with silver light, then fell beside her. Nero's hand gently held the handle of the sword and blew another bubble. She sneered at these men who stopped to protect her. Do you want me to try the sword? Which we won't shoot you. The crowd shouted. Then why don't you do it? Nero shook her head and reached out to take out a small bag hanging on her belt. She tossed it in her hand and raised her eyebrows. You can accuse me of murder as you like, but I won't give you this thing. This is my mother's thing back then, so it's mine. I'm just taking back what's mine. Your mother is just a guardian of this sword. It belongs to this place. Nero's eyes suddenly turned cold, and a cold air came out. The Yamato in her hand seemed to be murmuring the devil, which made the 13 men's faces change. Nero pulled out the Yamato and raised it to the sky, saying indifferently, I said I want to try the sword. Who wants to do it? Nero waved the sword and pointed at a middle-aged man. If you don't want to do it, then I will. She slowly walked forward step by step. The group of people, 13 big men, subconsciously used their swords to block in front of their bodies, but unknowingly retreated. This witch, her aura is so terrifying. The murmuring of the devil from the Yamato gradually became louder and louder, and then it sounded like a roar. Hiss! Roar! A terrifying roar suddenly sounded in everyone's hearts. Subconsciously, the 13 men's legs went soft, and they sat on the ground. Nero suddenly burst into laughter. What a coward! My sword doesn't want to eat you weak scumbags. Goodbye. My time is up anyway. As she spoke, the white-haired woman who looked like a demoness from hell disappeared into thin air in front of the 13 men. They looked at the scene in disbelief. How could a person disappear into thin air? This woman is so terrifying. Well, the word horrifying was something they learned from reading an online novel from a certain country, but they felt that it was the most appropriate word to describe this demoness. When the white light flashed, the servant girl who was wiping the cupboard and looking for a place to put the document brought back by her master stopped. The shop owner who was reading a book also looked up. In the white light, Miss Nero, who was holding the Yamato in her hand, looked around and muttered, It's really convenient. I came back just like that. It seems that Miss Nero had a good trip. Boss Luo walked up with a smile. Nero shrugged, put the Yamato on his shoulder, and laughed. Not bad. If you don't count the obvious malicious start of the fight, that you threw me directly on the isolated reef overseas, I recently fought a fight, took revenge, and got back something. And you teleported me to show off. I think those people must be scared to death now, haha. Although she said so, Nero still secretly glanced at her Yamato. Less than 10 seconds ago, it was still emitting a terrifying demonic aura, but now it had completely shrunk. It was as quiet as a sleeping sick cat. Tut tut. He was truly a shameless blade that swayed according to the wind. Nero calmly glanced at the shop owner. She didn't know who was the scariest one. Miss Nero is still as forthright as ever. Boss Luo smiled and opened his palm. There was a bag on his palm. It was the sole transaction fee that Nero deposited here before. The bag flew to Nero. Boss Luo said indifferently, "After deducting your expenses, there are still 7 souls left. Customer, please keep them." Nero shook the bag and put it away without opening it. At the same time, she put the Yamato back into the microphone and sat down casually. She sighed, "I just came back. I'm so tired. Boss, give me a glass of beer. I want a large one. Also, can you give me something to eat? Miss Maid's cooking is really good." "Yi, go and prepare," Boss Luo said softly. Miss Maid bowed slightly and left quietly. Luochio looked at the owner of the Yamato. She was really an interesting customer, just like those adventurers in the Adventurer's Bar in fantasy novels. "Beer hurts the stomach." Luochio smiled. "If you don't mind, I recently learned how to make a cocktail. Do you want to try it?" Nero narrowed her eyes. "So romantic? Are you trying to flirt with me?" "Boss Luo." Luochio immediately took back his previous comment. Yin 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 PS1. "Sorry, I only have one tonight. Because I just finished writing the story of Tree Spirit, I need to adjust myself. Besides, I'm not a juicer. I can't make juice easily." Chapter 550. Nero still didn't drink the cocktail made by the boss himself. Instead, she ordered a glass of white beer in an oversized cup. While eating the barbecue served by Miss Maid, she said, "Really? So many things happened. No wonder Cuck lost his memory. It turned out that he was plotted by Xiang Lu. This way, I can at least write a complete report." With that said, Nero threw out a dim soul light ball from the small bag containing her soul. "How long can you mark this Prometheus for?" Holding the soul light ball, Luochio said indifferently, 3 months. Luochio turned his palm, and a disc about the size of a makeup mirror box appeared in front of Nero. "Within 3 months, this thing can help you find its location at any time." Nero picked up another piece of barbecue and stuffed it into her mouth. This was the last piece. Nero didn't hesitate to put away the small disc and then burped, "I'm so full. Thank you for your hospitality." She stood up, raised her hands, and stretched her body. She suddenly squinted and said, "By the way, boss, I want to ask you something. I can only match the second form of the Yamato in my hand. How can I fully match its third form? Don't you know?" "Customer, this question will cost you," the boss said indifferently. "Stingy," Nero said. The boss smiled and said nothing. Of course, Nero couldn't see it because of the mask. But she was a free and easy person by nature. At least, she seemed to be so she shrugged and said, "Well, I'm a regular customer, aren't I? Is there a discount next time?" The boss pointed his finger on the table, and a black card with 4 golden seals appeared in front of Nero. Nero waved her hand and took it. Then she tapped her finger on her lips and sent a flying kiss to Boss Luo. "What a good boss. Goodbye. Please wait, customer." Boss Luo suddenly stopped Nero. After her surprised look, he nodded to Yi. Miss Maid turned around and left the hall. Not long after, she came out with a tray. Yi lifted the cloth on the tray. There was a palm-sized wooden box about 3 centimeters high engraved with many strange patterns. "Is this for me?" Nero frowned. "What is it?" Luochio said, "The bag used to store the soul is too rough. You'd better use this one. It's more delicate and can be preserved longer." Nero was stunned. She took the box and asked subconsciously, "How much is this?" "No need." Unexpectedly, the boss said indifferently, "This is borrowed for you. It will automatically return to us until your life ends. Of course, it doesn't matter if you refuse." Nero poured the remaining souls in her original bag into the box without saying a word. Then she smiled and said, "Ding, congratulations to player Nero for getting an important item from the boss. box for storing souls get. Is that right? Welcome next time. According to a transaction that Cuck didn't know, he had no way to restore his memories that showed signs of awakening in a few weeks. Although he didn't have the feeling of remembering more recently, but gradually felt confused, Cuck didn't change his current life. He spent most of his time meditating in his room. He would often sit there for half a day, as if he himself was a speck of dust in this room. Only when Xiaoji of the tofu shop knocked on the door out of boredom, there would be some sounds in the room. Although he still couldn't remember his identity and origin, the way he did things seemed to be instinctive. He could keenly feel that San Air was avoiding him. Since she was avoiding, then he would try not to contact her. He was even considering leaving this place in the next few days. Since he met the strange, white-haired woman last time, he had a feeling. The day of his departure was getting closer and closer. Uncle Mark, what story are you going to tell me today? The more familiar this little guy was, the more unscrupulous she seemed to be. As soon as she walked in, she hugged Cuck's arm and shook it. Cuck subconsciously touched Xiaoji's head and suddenly thought of something. If he left, would Xiaoji be sad? Logically speaking, he shouldn't think about this kind of thing. His thinking pattern had been reminding him of this matter. No story today, Cuck said with a blank expression. Go and find me a piece of wood. He gestured the size on his hand. Xiaoji sucked her fingers and looked at it for a while with her big round eyes before nodding. Then she ran out with her chubby legs. Soon after, Xiaoji came back with a log about 10 centimeters long and about 10 centimeters in diameter. Cuck took the log, then walked to the table, opened the drawer, took out a knife, and sat on the ground. The knife gestured at the log for a while and began to cut it. Xiaoji tilted her neck and looked at Uncle Mark's actions. She knew that Uncle Mark was very powerful. She had secretly seen Uncle Mark lift a tofu board more than 1 meter high with one hand. But Uncle Mark didn't talk much most of the time. Uncle Mark, what are you doing? Cuck didn't pay attention to her, but just used the knife to cut the log in his hand. Xiaoji had long been accustomed to his silence. She didn't make a fuss at this time, but directly lay on the ground and held her chin with both hands. Her chubby and soft calves kicked up and down. She looked at Uncle Mark like this, and only felt that it was interesting. Gradually, she got tired and simply fell asleep. Cuck stopped the movement of his hands, picked up Xiaoji, put her on the bed, covered her with a quilt, and began to sit on the ground again, carving the wood in his hand. Every time he slashed, wood chips would fly out like fluffy cotton. When he finished the last cut, there was already a pile of wood chips on the ground. Cuck put down the knife, then blew at the last completed wood carving, blowing away the wood dust attached to it, and then put it among the wood chips. This was a swan. It was waving its wings in the wood shavings. It was so lifelike that it looked like a real swan that had landed in the snow. He put this wooden swan in Xiaoji's arms, then picked her up again and sent her back to her room. Cuck returned to his room again, swept away the wood shavings on the ground, turned off the lights, and sat there alone. Tomorrow, it will probably be like this, Cuck thought silently. He didn't know that a pair of eyes were silently staring at this small tofu shop not far away. Not only looking at the dark room where Cuck was, but also looking at San Air, who was busy cleaning up the shop in front of the shop. Why do I suddenly have a feeling that it's not bad for Cuck to go on like this? Sitting cross-legged on the roof of a house, Nero, who was holding a painting tube with both hands, was chewing a cheap bread taken from a nearby canteen at this time. Yamato and the painting tube made a whisper at this time. Of course, only its host, Nero, could hear the whisper. Oh, you want to eat, Cuck? Nero looked at the painting tube and said mockingly, why didn't I see you so energetic when you were in the boss's house? The painting tube trembled slightly, as if it was dissatisfied. It's very troublesome to eat, Cuck. Nero shook her head and said, at least the old guys in the club will not let me go. Although I can just escape, it's still very troublesome. Running around the world and being chased or something. Nero lay down with her hands on her head, crossed her legs, and squinted leisurely. Suddenly, she showed a mischievous smile. But if Cuck goes crazy, do you think he can beat me? Chapter 551. There was only one doctor working in the town's health station. As for the nurses, there were several of them. However, except for a young girl who just came back from medical school. The rest were all Andes. Therefore, Jean Cohen, who had to be hospitalized because of his broken leg after walking at night, had to play with his mobile phone and flirt with the young girl. Padash. While the young girl nurse was tidying up the quilt on the bed next to him, Jean Cohen slapped the young girl's but with his palm, making a crisp sound. The young girl was shocked and quickly turned around. She saw Jean Cohen seriously picking up a newspaper that had been flipped through countless times. Pervert! The young girl cried and scolded, running out with red eyes. She knew she couldn't do anything to this pervert. Everyone was afraid of this shameless guy. How could this scum not die after falling into the pit and only break his leg? Ha! Jean Cohen laughed at this moment, with his eyes full of lust. This little girl's but is so perky, but her appearance is not good. She's really a bitch who won't feel pity even if she dies. But at this moment, Jean Cohen suddenly heard such a voice. It was very low, as if someone was speaking with a suppressed voice. He couldn't even tell whether it was a man or a woman. He subconsciously looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a guy wearing a coat, a hoodie, and a mask sitting on the window frame. He was carrying a big black cylinder behind him, and Jean Cohen didn't know what was in it. But it seemed that he wasn't big and was a little thin. But who was Jean Cohen? He was recognized in the town as a person who was feared by everyone. He was shameless and naturally domineering. How could he tolerate someone pointing at his nose and scolding him? Good guy, you dare to scold me to my face? You don't know who I am, right? Jean Cohen sneered. Do you believe that I can kill you right away? Unexpectedly, the guy in the coat waved his hand and said, Jean Cohen, I'm not interested in talking nonsense with you here. I'm here to tell you something. Jean Cohen didn't care at all. He picked up the phone and intended to call someone. He was always vengeful. Don't you want to know why you fell into a pit and broke your leg? The guy in the coat said coldly. Jean Cohen was stunned. His finger that was pressing the number suddenly stopped. His eyes were full of haze as he stared at the guy in front of the windowsill. Who are you? You don't have to worry about that. The man said indifferently. All you need to know is that I can tell you who did this to you, and I can help you get the woman you want. You mean? Jean Cohen frowned, sans air. Haven't you always wanted to sleep with this woman? This person said sarcastically, but it's not easy for a widow to raise a child. Even if your family has some connections, you don't dare to use force. You're afraid that you won't be able to cover it up and cause public outrage. That's why you didn't use force, right? Why are you helping me? Jean Cohen asked coldly. Of course there is a purpose. The man said indifferently, but don't worry, I won't take a single cent from you, and I won't ask you to do anything for me. In short, I won't harm your interests at all. Moreover, I can make your foot get better immediately. Jean Cohen sneered. Humph, do you think I will casually believe a guy of unknown origin like you? The man suddenly threw a small ball about the size of a finger to Jean Cohen, like a wax seal. Unscrew it and apply the medicine inside to your injury. After one night, you will be able to walk normally. The man chuckled. Believe it or not, you can think about it yourself. I will come again. Wait a minute, Jean Cohen quickly shouted. Unexpectedly, this strange fellow flipped its body and jumped out of the window, disappearing from sight. When Jean Cohen touched the window with the help of something, he couldn't see any trace of the man. He went back to the bed, picked up the small wax pill, and frowned. Early the next morning, Jean Cohen looked out of the window with a kind of anxiety from time to time. He opened the wax pill, thinking that it was just something to apply on the foot and not to eat, so there should be nothing to be afraid of. Therefore, he applied it to the injury with the mentality of giving it a try. Unexpectedly, when he woke up in the morning, his foot didn't hurt anymore. He got out of bed and walked a few steps, and it didn't hinder him at all. He also had no problem running and jumping. This is really 2F** king amazing. Now, he was looking forward to the appearance of this guy in the coat again. But this time, he still had to ask this guy's purpose. He wasn't a guy who could easily trust others. Suddenly, his eyes blurred, and something came in. Jean Cohen took a look. Who else could it be if it wasn't the strange man from yesterday? He immediately greeted with a smile. Brother, you are here. Oh, you welcome me so much this time? Jean Cohen laughed and said, Yesterday, I didn't know that you are amazing. Now that I have seen it, how can I still show a sour face? Let's not talk about other things. You cured my leg. I, Jean Cohen, recognize you as my brother. Next time, if you are in town, just say the word, and I will be there immediately. If I don't come, I am a bastard. Oh, sounds really good. The guy in the coat chuckled, but let's talk about the things that we didn't finish yesterday. Jean Cohen rubbed his hands and said, I also want to know which bastard did this to me. I must take revenge. His name is Mark. The guy in the coat said indifferently. Now he is living in San Air's tofu shop. He is a foreigner. A foreigner? Jean Cohen frowned and suddenly said, could it be that the guy I met that day is that guy? He actually lived there. Damn, he must have done it. F***CK. Snatching my woman. No wonder he hurt me. It must be San Air's pillow talk. F***CK. This pair of bitches. It seems that you have started to hate her. Jean Cohen punched the bed and said angrily, F***CK. I will call someone to chop this foreigner up. With that, he picked up the phone without saying anything. But when he was about to get through, he suddenly stopped and seemed to be hesitant. The guy in the coat said mockingly, What? Aren't you going to do it? Jean Cohen gritted his teeth and said, This foreigner, I don't know where he came from. He may cause trouble. I have to think about it carefully. Besides, you deliberately want me to deal with this Mark, right? You're not stupid. At least you can see it. The guy said indifferently, but you can rest assured. I have a small matter with this Mark. Also, you don't have to be afraid. He has no background. To put it bluntly, he is a person who illegally came here. He can't be exposed. In other words, Jean Cohen said with a murderous look, in other words, no one will know if he dies. But why should I believe you? Is the medicine last night effective? The guy in the coat suddenly said. Jean Cohen nodded affirmatively. I still have a lot in my hands. The guy said indifferently and gave Jean Cohen 2 wax pills. He then said, treating your injury is a small matter. For more serious injuries, even if you were stabbed by a knife, it will heal quickly. I can give it to you. Whether I keep it for my own use or sell it for money, this is a treasure. Jean Cohen, who had already used it, was convinced of the medicinal properties of this medicine. He suddenly showed a greedy look. What do you want me to do? It's very simple. The guy sneered. First, you do as I say. You first. The two talked for about 20 minutes in the room. In the end, Jean Cohen showed a sinister look. He held the 2 magical wax pills in his hand and watched the weirdo leave. He immediately began to make a call, to ask his underlings to do it. Xiao, taking off her coat and unbuttoning her mask, Nero, who had the name of Tyrant, sat under the bridge of the only river in the town. Are you stupid? How can I give you the TVR for medicine so easily? The latter 2 are just batter. Nero showed a little devilish smile, squinting at her reflection in the river. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she seemed to see a light blue halo in her pupils. Nero frowned. Her face was closer to the river. She stretched out her hand and closed her eyes, but she couldn't see anything. No. She blinked and didn't feel any discomfort. She thought it might be an illusion brought by the refraction of the light in the river, so she didn't continue to care. And let's take a nap first. Master, it's time for lunch. When Ye's voice sounded, Boss Luo slowly opened his eyes and withdrew his vision. From Nero's perspective. Chapter 552. As the boss of the club, Luacio's ability improved with the number of transactions. If he wanted to observe something, he naturally didn't need to use such trouble. He needed to use another perspective. At the beginning, planting the spiritual seed in Nero was just a move of Luacio's mind. He took the opportunity to inject a large amount of transaction information into Nero and implanted this perspective seed. This was the first time that Luacio tried to switch to Nero's perspective to observe. And to his surprise, when he used Nero's perspective, he had a completely different feeling. He seemed to have found the feeling before he became the boss of the club. But when his perspective returned to himself, everything once again returned to extreme silence, like the water in an ancient well, almost stagnant water. Perhaps through Nero's perspective, he could find or even solve the problem of his emotions being stripped. Boss Luo suddenly stopped and looked at Yu Yi, who was cutting the roasted lamb leg for him. He seemed to be a little absent-minded. "Master, is there any problem?" Yu Yi asked softly as she put a piece of finely cut lamb on the plate in front of her master. Luochio shook his head and calmly praised. "It's just a feeling. You're also very beautiful today." Yu Yi nodded with a smile and accepted the praise. And he was the boss of the club again. For Xiaoji, she had a lot of treasures. Children who were still in nursery always had the so-called treasures that adults couldn't understand. Xiaoji's current treasure was a very good-looking wooden swan. This was given to her by Uncle Mark. Since she got it, Xiaoji didn't let this wooden swan leave her small bag. But today there was one thing that made Xiaoji unhappy. That was the other children in the nursery bullied her. The thing was, the nursery teacher asked everyone to draw their own parents with crayons in the afternoon. But until the end, Xiaoji didn't draw a complete picture. Haha, Xiaoji doesn't have a father. Xiaoji didn't finish her homework. She's a bad child. Children, be quiet. Don't bully Xiaoji like this. Ha. The teacher in the classroom couldn't even stop so many children from heckling. If she scolded, these children would be scared and cry. Even if she spoke nicely, she would not be able to control the other side. Looking at Xiaoji, who had lowered her head and tears welled up in her eyes, the teacher felt both heartache and anxiety. Unexpectedly, at this time, Xiaoji overturned the small children's desk on the ground and rushed to the boy who shouted the most fiercely. The two little guys suddenly wrestled together. The result was naturally out of control. When Sanae received the call, she didn't care about the tofu shop's business. She quickly closed the door and put on her slippers. She didn't even take off the apron on her body and hurried over. "I'm sorry, my child is too naughty. I'm sorry." Obviously, she didn't intend to let her to calm her son's mother, who finally gave birth to a boy in her 30s. And finally gave birth to a boy of a boy. Of the mother who finally gave birth to a boy in her 30s, of her to give birth to a boy to the mother who was to give birth a boy, was to apologize. To be angry, to be a child, to of twos, Ido be a child of a AT, to be a child, to be a S. She's so rude at such a young age. What will happen when she grows up? Do you have time to take care of your child because you're busy sleeping with him every day? Please show some respect, okay? Sanae's eyes were a little red as she stared at the other party. Respect? The woman's face became more and more ugly. Respect requires dignity. Who doesn't know that you're hiding a foreign man at home? How is it? Does that man make you feel good? Say it. You bitch. Aya. Unexpectedly, Xiaoji grabbed the woman's thigh at this time and bit down hard. "You bastard. How dare you bite me? I'll beat you to death." The woman stretched out her hand and pulled Xiaoji up, raising her hand to hit her. "Don't hit my daughter." Sanae couldn't stand it anymore. She rushed over and grabbed Xiaoji back. "I have to teach her a lesson today." The woman was also evil. She showed a fierce face and grabbed Sanae's hair with one hand. "Stop it. If you continue to do this, I'll call the police." The teacher said anxiously, "If you go to the police station, it won't be good for everyone, right? Let's talk nicely." Probably this kind of violent mechanism had an inexplicable deterrence for a fierce housewife. When the woman heard it, she let go of Sanae bitterly. She pulled up her son with one hand and said coldly, "I'll call my husband to go to your broken shop later and argue with you." Oomph. Xiaoji was probably scared. She grabbed Sanae's clothes and buried her face in it, crying. Don't be afraid. It's okay. Sanae comforted her softly. The teacher could only sigh at this time and said, "Sister-in-law, it's okay." She just said some polite words. "If she looks for you, remember to tell me. I'll help you." Sanae looked at the teacher gratefully, but she didn't expect too much. This teacher, she was a teacher, but in fact, she was just a worker in the nursery. She didn't even have a kindergarten teacher certificate. Her home was also here. How could she offend others casually? Sanae sighed silently, nodded to the teacher, and then left with Xiaoji. On the way home, even if Sanae held Xiaoji's hand, she still lowered her head all the way. Sanae didn't speak. She just held her daughter's hand and felt that the road was much longer than before. Mom, I'm sorry, Xiaoji said with a crying tone. Sanair said, what are you sorry for? Xiaoji hugged Sanair's calf and cried. Xiaoji shouldn't hit people. Xiaoji shouldn't bite people. But that Annie is too bad. She scolded Mom. Xiaoji is so sad, so sad. It's okay, it's okay. Sanair squatted down, hugged Xiaoji, patted Xiaoji's back gently, and whispered, it's okay, Mom is fine. Xiaoji sniffed at this time and said with grievance, Mom, why don't you ask Uncle Mark to be my dad? Sanair was stunned. She moved her lips and said a little louder. She was anxious and angry. Why do you say this? Because if Xiaoji has a dad, no one will laugh at Xiaoji for not having a dad. Xiaoji lowered her head and said, no one will bully Mom. Mom, I want to have a dad. Sanair's eyes turned red. She picked up Xiaoji and put her on her shoulder, not letting her see her face. She held back her sadness and whispered, Xiaoji, be a good girl. Mommy will make meatballs for you when we go home. Okay? This was probably a good way to distract Xiaoji's attention. She nodded and said, I want to eat sweet. Okay, I'll make sweet ones. Xiaoji threw herself into Sanair's arms and fell asleep unconsciously. Sanair went home with a lot on her mind. Thinking of what Xiaoji said, she couldn't help but think of the sadness along the way. She couldn't help crying silently. How could she not want to have someone to rely on? But Mark was too mysterious and dreamy for her. Sanair shook her head. When she returned to the front of the tofu shop, she saw a lot of people gathered in front of her shop, pointing and discussing. Sanair didn't dare to immediately go forward and ask what had happened. She just quietly looked in front of her shop. With this look, Sanair immediately turned pale with fright. This was because, at some point in time, someone had used red spray paint to write a large number of ugly words on the door of her shop. Shameless, slut, cheating couple, bitch, who did this? Sanair couldn't imagine it at all. She was even more afraid that these neighbors would find out that she was here. She was afraid that they would look at her. Thinking of that scene, Sanair felt cold all over, and her whole body trembled with fear. Mom, haven't you reached home yet? Xiaoji, who was in his arms, seemed to hear the movement and woke up. Sanair quickly pressed her head, then turned and ran into the alley. She circled around and returned to the back door of her tofu shop from the back alley. But here, she also saw big red words written all over it. Sanair opened the door crazily, then closed the door without saying anything. She pulled the door bolt, sat down against the door, hugged her daughter, and sobbed painfully. Mom, what's wrong with you? Mom. Xiaoji is so scared. Don't cry, okay? She just hugged her daughter tighter. Mom. Chapter 553. When it was late at night and Xiaoji had fallen asleep, Sanair fetched a bucket of water, took a brush and detergent, and quietly came to the back door. These red words in front of the door. She could only choose this time to brush them by herself. Otherwise, she couldn't do business tomorrow. This kind of thing, a woman should do it. She had to do everything by herself. But when she went to the back and was about to open the door, she found that the door was unlocked. This gave Sanair a fright, and she even heard some strange sounds. Sanair suddenly held a shoulder pole in her hand and carefully looked through the crack of the door. But what she saw was Mark. He lit a fire and water lamp and put on the ground. He was holding a brush in his hand. He was washing the red words on the wall. Squeak! It was the sound of the door axle when the wooden door was pushed. You? Sanair came out. Mark! Cuck just glanced at her and didn't stop his movements. He continued to brush the red words on the wall. Seeing that Mark didn't say anything, Sanair silently took out the water she had fetched and washed silently on the other side. If there was light, the words written on the paint were very dazzling and red, just like the blood attached to the wall. Sanair's eyes turned red, and she felt uncomfortable in her heart. Then she brushed the brush hard. She didn't know how long it took. Suddenly, Sanair heard Mark's voice. He said, I will leave here tomorrow morning. Sanair's body shook slightly, but she didn't say anything. She just brushed harder. Don't stay in this place. It's not suitable for you. Sanair heard Mark's voice again. Her movements slowed down a little, and she smiled bitterly. Leave? Where can I go? I don't know anything. How can I live outside? The ability of human survival is always beyond our imagination. Air stopped and looked at Mark. This tall, mysterious, and powerful man seemed to be very persuasive when he said this. But it's easy to say. I have to take care of my daughter. How can I live outside? Air seemed to be protesting, and the grievances in her heart were gradually magnified. I don't know anyone outside. There is no one I can talk to. How can you teach me how to live? You also have no one to talk to here. Mark was still as indifferent as ever. Air threw the brush into the bucket and sat on the steps of the back door. She covered her face and wept. She heard the words that were extremely uncomfortable for her. He frowned. Looking at Air's appearance, he subconsciously walked forward, but he suddenly stopped. On the one hand, he felt that comforting Air would bring a lot of unnecessary involvement. On the other hand, it was because he heard some small, approaching footsteps. Cook turned around abruptly. He saw 4 men with their faces wrapped in a simple towel, carrying crowbars and a bucket as they groped their way over. "Who are you?" Cook shouted in a deep voice. The 3 people dressed like this in the middle of the night were naturally not good people. When they heard the shout, not only were they not afraid, they looked at each other and walked forward without fear. There were 4 of them, and they even had crowbars. How could they be afraid of a foreigner? Air heard the sound and quickly looked over. Suddenly, her face was filled with fear. She subconsciously stood up. "Are these things on the wall also written by you?" Cook asked indifferently at this time. The 4 masked men didn't say a word. They just rushed over and waved the crowbars in their hands. It seemed that they had been fighting like this for a long time. They had a bit of fierce momentum. Cook frowned slightly, but he was not afraid. He turned his eyes and saw the pole that Air had just taken out. Now it was leaning against the wall, so he gently kicked it with his foot. He took the end of the pole and flew over. At the moment when the pole was in his hand, Cook suddenly felt a little absent-minded. It was a feeling that he was very familiar with. He felt that he used to have such a posture often, but he didn't have time to think about it. Facing the attack of the 4 masked men, the pole rotated in Cook's hand. A kind of fanatical fierceness that flowed through his body emerged from the depths of his body, driving his body instinctively. So he moved. In a flash, this ordinary-looking pole transformed into a hummingbird that soared into the sky, charging straight for a masked man's shoulder. With one strike, the masked man was sent flying a distance of 2 to 3 meters. There was a scream. The man's shoulder was almost all broken because of this terrible impact. The masked man only remembered to scream before he fainted from the pain. When the other 3 saw this, they were even more ferocious. 3 crowbars smashed toward Cook's head at the same time. It wasn't a good trick, but it was a desperate way to beat someone who had been practicing for many years. Cook gave a light hum. The pole in his hand was like an agile snake. He quickly pointed 3 times. It was as if he had gone through precise calculations. Without exception, he pointed at the same position of the 3 masked men's wrists. Moreover, the iron crowbar in their hands was knocked away at the same time. The 3 men screamed at the same time. They painfully grabbed their wrists, feeling as if they had been hit by a stone. The 3 crowbars fell at this time. Cook picked them up one by one with the pole. The 3 crowbars seemed to be glued to the pole and twisted around it one after another. Cook suddenly swung the crowbars down. With a bang, the 3 crowbars were inserted vertically into the old stone bricks in the alley, like 3 incense sticks standing in front of the 3 masked men. The 3 men were suddenly shocked. How could they care about the fierceness of the pole? They rolled and crawled to help their companion who had fainted early and rushed into the alley. Cook wanted to catch up, but at this moment he suddenly felt a splitting headache, as if his head was going to explode. How could he care to catch up? He supported his body with the pole, reached out, and pinched his eyebrows, motionless. "Ma, Mark, how are you?" After a long time, Air just came out. She was so scared that her face was pale. At this time, she nervously patted Mark's shoulder. So he suddenly opened his eyes and shook his head. The feeling of headache had eased a lot. He felt that something wanted to rush out from the depths of his mind, but it seemed that there was a big net covering these things that were very important to him. Who are they? Air asked in horror at this time. Cook frowned and walked to the white oil barrel that was left here by the 4 masked guys. He opened it and sniffed it, then looked up at Saint and asked, "Did you offend anyone? This is gasoline. They should want to set it on fire." Set it on fire. Saint was so scared that she couldn't stand still. But at this time, the neighbor's house suddenly lit up. Cook saw it and quickly said, "Let's go inside first." He quickly lifted the barrel of gasoline, picked up the bucket with the pole, and took Saint into the back door without hesitation and pulled down the door bolt. Cook still looked very calm, but Saint was at a loss. "Think about it seriously. Who could it be?" Cook asked again. Saint calmed down and subconsciously thought of the quarrel with someone in the nursery and almost beaten up, but she denied it after thinking about it carefully. First of all, the time was too late. It was impossible for the other party to arrange someone to write those insults in front of her house in such a short time after she came back from the nursery. Moreover, if someone set a fire because of such a small matter, it would be too unreasonable. "I don't know." Saint shook her head helplessly. Cook pondered for a moment and said directly, "Make sure that the door of the house is locked. I will walk around outside. In addition, I won't leave tomorrow." Saint was stunned. When she was about to speak, she saw Mark reach out and pick up the pole. He pushed the door open and walked out. This back gave her an unprecedented sense of security. Putting down the binoculars, Nero's pupils flashed a faint blue halo, but she still didn't notice it. Instead, she narrowed her eyes and smiled slightly. Aha! In the end, he couldn't help but make a move. Miss Tyrant laughed softly, and the plan in her heart seemed to be enriched again. "You must thank me, Cook. I am the person who gave you a foreign relationship." Chapter 554. Miss Tyrant, who was carrying the painting tube, strolled around Saint house. After putting down some things, she left quietly. With a smile, she smiled like a naughty child who had just successfully stolen a watermelon from someone else's field. Saint turned on a wall lamp in the living room on the first floor of the tofu shop. She held a kitchen knife in her hands and watched the second hand of the clock on the wall turn. Her eyelids closed again and again, and she was already sleepy. Suddenly, she heard a knock on the door. After being shocked, she found that it was Mark who came back. Saint was slightly relieved. "Drink a glass of water first." Saint poured a glass of warm water for Mark and took a sip herself. She had been nervous for most of the night, and she didn't drink a drop of water herself. There should be no one nearby. You can have a good rest later. But Saint sat down worriedly. She still looked worried. What should I do? Should I go to the police station tomorrow? It seemed that Cook had been avoiding dealing with this kind of mechanism instinctively. He said calmly, "You don't know who is dealing with you. It may not be useful to report this kind of thing to the police." Then what should I do? "You go to rest first. I will guard in the second half of the night. If someone comes again, I will catch him this time. When tomorrow is daytime, the enemy will not dare to be blatant, so at least there is still a day to inquire in the town." Cook thought. Saint nodded. She, who was out of her wits, subconsciously listened to the words of this powerful man. He was really very powerful. The way he used the shoulder pole to deal with the four people just now was not like an ordinary person. Saint quietly came to Xiaoji's room and sat on the bed. She planned to sleep here tonight. Cook was used to sitting quietly. At this time, he just moved from the room to the small yard behind the tofu shop. Although it was in the open and at night, the cold seemed to have no effect on him. Sitting on the ground, he still held the carrying pole in his hand. He closed his eyes and remained motionless, like a statue. After an unknown period of time, Cook's eyelids trembled slightly. He gently opened his eyes and frowned. He suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. It was late at night, very late, but the cold water flowed along the skin, all the way from the cheeks to the collarbone, and then continued to leave the towering chest and then the lower abdomen. The cold water flowed all the way down, making Saint couldn't help but let out a soft moan. She was burning like fire, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. It was so uncomfortable that even in this kind of weather, she had unknowingly dripped with sticky sweat. This was the restlessness of her body. Saint was very clear about this kind of restlessness. Most of the time, she would choose to take a cold shower to cool herself down. Only on rare occasions would she choose to solve the problem by herself. But this night, She could only use the usual method. She secretly hated herself for choosing this time. She couldn't get rid of the image of Mark's imposing back when he defeated the bad guys in the latter half of the night. She raised her head and let the water spray onto her body. She only felt that after it cooled down slightly, she became more comfortable. Sanair simply let her body completely stick to the porcelain of the bathroom, then took off the shower and subconsciously let the strong and powerful water spray onto her chest. The skin that was strongly stimulated suddenly stood up with small cold particles. Sanair felt that her breathing suddenly became rapid. When the bud was sprayed by the slender but strong water, it reacted naturally and gradually became firm. She was still gasping for air, and in her hazy state, her fingers had already touched her chest. Men would never be able to understand their own bodies better than women. The water from the gap between her palms and her chest was like water passing through a ravine. It slowly flowed down with the residual warmth of her body. It left a trail between her legs and then really landed on the floor tiles. She had sat completely on the ground, closed her eyes, and felt the strong stimulation brought by the fingers teasing her chest. Her bright lips were sometimes closed, sometimes opened, and sometimes bit. His legs, which were lying flat on the white tiles, suddenly became restless. The two thighs were like two intertwined snakes, slowly rubbing against each other. Perhaps the simple spraying of breasts and caressing could no longer calm the desire in her heart. Sanair's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She put down the shower in her hands, and at the same time, her face was flushed, and she opened her legs. She used the strong water spray from the shower to tightly stick to the most private part of her body. She felt that this place was Canaan. She didn't remember why she thought of Canaan. She only occasionally remembered a story told by a priest who came to the town a long time ago. There was rich milk and honey. There was the promised land. There was life. Yes, the more intense the stimulation, the more fertile the promised land became. This land that had brought life was now filled with milk and honey. She was like a wanderer who had traveled a long and arduous journey and finally found the promised land that belonged to her. When she saw the incomparably delicious honey, she was filled with excitement and palpitations as she reached out to grab it, to grab the sweetness that belonged to her. She even imagined that at this moment, there was another broad palm on her palm, and the fingers were entangled with each other, gently rubbing. Like a dream, she was opening the forbidden area of her body, exploring a trace of joy. La 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 long. Bang. The last bang was very light, but it was enough to disturb Sanair, who was immersed in this quiet environment. This was the sound of the outside door being closed. Even though it was very light, she could still distinguish it clearly. Sanair subconsciously looked at the door of the bathroom, only to see a pair of feet stamping in the crack of the door. At this moment, Sanair tried to suppress her breath, but her heart was beating wildly. But the feet, after pausing for a while, turned around and intended to leave. "Don't go." Sanair made a sorrowful voice, threw away the shower head in her hand, and grabbed the lock handle on the bathroom door. "Don't go." She knew that the person outside was Mark. She didn't know how long she had been hiding in the bathroom, but the only thing she was sure of was that she couldn't control herself at this moment. Both his mind and body were thirsting for something. Hearing Sanair's voice, Cuck took a deep breath. After sitting quietly for half a night, he couldn't calm down the heat in his body, so he also wanted to wash his face with cold water to sober up. "Don't go." The sound of the door opening and a force with impact was not big, like pouncing on his back. This was what Cuck felt at this time. Sanair's wet body was completely attached to Cuck's back. The thin clothes couldn't prevent the water from penetrating. "Don't go." He heard her moaning voice, and at the same time felt Sanair's fingers moving on his body. Her fingers seemed to be searching for something, and this kind of searching was more like a clear signal to him. A signal that easily destroyed his usual calmness. The wildness hidden in his body had been ignited in an instant. Cuck finally panted uncomfortably and grabbed Sanair's hand. Turning around, with the help of the bathroom light, looking at the wet, delicate, prepared body, Cuck exhaled a hot breath, clasped San Air's face with both hands, and lowered his head to invade the plump lips. It was like a combination of wind and rain. Two different but gradually similar panting sounds became louder and louder in the small corridor, as if it was an amplified beat. The kiss between them was so intense that Cuck arched his body, covered San Air's chest with his palms, pressed her against the wall, and kissed her collarbone and neck. San Air subconsciously began to tear his clothes. She was excited but clumsy to untie the belt around his waist. She reached out to grab the key that could further open the promised land in her body. Suddenly, Cuck violently turned San Air around and pressed her body against the wall. He grabbed her left hand with one hand and pierced her body with the other with his waist. When the door of the forbidden area opened, he and she returned to the most primitive state. They'd been maintaining this posture. This was a posture that San Air had never tried before, and she had never thought that she would have sex with a man in such a place, even if it was her home, an experience that she had never had, but it was extremely compatible with her body, made her tense all her nerves and magnified all her feelings. She was really greedy for a sound of joy. Over and over again, she had already been immersed in this strong and powerful collision. In the end, she felt his hot body lying on top of her from behind, and the fierce heat that spurted out of her body, and she finally cried out. This was the saddest sound she had ever made in all the climaxes she had experienced in her life. When it was over, the small corridor outside the bathroom returned to silence. He and she didn't say anything. Yin, 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 PS1. Please ignore the title of this chapter. Of course, you can study it if you want. PS2. I made a deal with Boss Luo. You'll forget what you've read after reading this chapter. I won't admit that I've written this, either. Chapter 555. Trash. A bunch of trash. For people can't even deal with one person, and all of you came back with injuries. Zhang Kuan was very angry, looking at the few underlings in front of him. He was even angrier. Boss, you don't know. That foreigner is too good at using the shoulder pole. Even with a crowbar, we were no match for him. Look at him. Look at his shoulder. I think it must be broken. Zhang Kuan frowned. This guy who was the most seriously injured hadn't woken up yet, but when he saw the wound from his clothes, Zhang Kuan's back was cold. You, quickly take him to see the doctor. Zhang Kuan waved his hand, but quickly changed his words. Don't go to town. You drive the motorcycle to the neighboring town. Don't look at him here. Whatever the doctor asks you, just say that he was hit by a bike. Got it? I got it, boss. Zhang Kuan didn't intend to use the 2 wax pills he got from the mysterious man. He felt that it was not worth it to use such a good thing on his underlings. Motherf asterisk her. This foreigner is actually so good at fighting. After watching the 2 people leave, Zhang Kuan sat down angrily, and the remaining 2 underlings quickly poured a glass of water for him. Brother, I think this foreigner is not simple. Should we not provoke him? Bullying the kind and fearing the evil. This had always been the standard for their actions. He then said with a ferocious expression, besides, brother, if you really like that little girl San, we brothers will secretly help you kidnap her. When the time comes, won't you be able to play with her however you want? When you're tired of her, you can throw her back. This kind of widow, do you dare to go around telling others? Even if you do it, it will be useless. Is this interesting? Zhang Kuan snorted. A bunch of ignorant things. Get out, don't bother me. The 2 underlings looked at each other. Their wrists were also hurt badly. So when they heard this, they didn't want to stay. So they went to find a place to heal themselves. Zhang Kuan drank a bottle of jiujiang here, peeled a few peanuts, and ate them. While eating, he felt that it was tasteless, so he suddenly swept all the things on the table to the ground. It looks like you failed. You again. The moment he heard the voice, Zhang Kuan glared fiercely. As expected, the guy in the coat appeared at the window again. Of course, this time, the window was in his house. Zhang Kuan walked up angrily. I've done everything you asked me to do. What's the result? I didn't get anything. My men were also injured. You didn't tell me that this foreigner was so hard to deal with. Wearing a coat, Nero chuckled. Are you stupid? If it wasn't difficult, would I give you that kind of medicine as a reward? Do you really think it's a pie that fell from the sky? Only then did Jean Cohen suppress his anger. Tell me honestly, where did this foreigner come from? Nero chuckled again. Jean Cohen said angrily, What are you laughing at? Nero mocked, I'm laughing at you, you trash. I'm laughing at you for having nowhere to vent your frustrations. I just passed by that tofu shop and heard the commotion inside. It was really intense. A man and a woman, TSK. Do you want to take a look? Maybe these two people haven't finished yet. You. Jean Cohen's eyes were as big as a cow's. He reached over the window frame and wanted to grab Nero's neck. But he didn't know how terrifying the person he wanted to catch was. Nero didn't even use her hand directly. She just pressed Jean Cohen's arm with the painting tube and pressed his arm directly against the window frame. She pressed it heavily. Jean Cohen suddenly broke into a cold sweat because of the pain. He felt that his arm was about to break. He looked at her in horror. This guy's strength is beyond imagination. Nero said indifferently at this time, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I asked you to do these things at the beginning just to make the woman in the tofu shop unable to stand the rumors and choose to separate from Cook. But you are too useless and failed. And there is no other way. I can only change my mind temporarily. What do you want me to do? Nero said, If Cook is here all day, you can't get San Air. Do you believe it? Of course, even if Cook is not here, you can't get San Air. But she didn't intend to say this sentence. You want me to kill him? Jean Cohen's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. Obviously, he was just hesitating, not because of fear. No, you can't deal with him. Nero shook her head and said, But just help me lure him out. Of course, it will be better if you can irritate him. In the end, I will deal with him myself. The angry and even crazy owner of Thousand Thorns Spear. Thinking of Cook in that state, Nero couldn't help but let out a low and crazy laugh. This kind of anger and madness was impossible if Cook was sober. As a divine general of the club, Nero knew too well how difficult it was to break through Cook's almost perfect state of mind. With that said, Nero pushed Jean Cohen directly to the ground with the painting tube and turned away. If you still want your benefits in San Air, do as I say. Otherwise, I don't know the consequences. Jean Cohen got up in horror. At this time, he could still see her. She came and went without a trace. I'm looking forward to it. Under the moonlight, Nero sat on the edge of someone else's rooftop, stretched, and then suddenly turned around. She pulled open the leather jacket on her body and stopped when the zipper reached her belly. As for the inside, it was not the common women's underwear, but a white cloth wrapped around it. It turned out to be a bandage binding her chest. She reached into her chest and dug out a black card after a while. Nero stood up and pulled back her zipper. Then, she gently tapped the black card with her finger and said with a smile, Boss, can you hear me? But Nero waited for a while, but there was nothing in front of her. The black card didn't seem to have any reaction. She couldn't help but mutter, and, is there a distance limit? It's so troublesome to walk back. Of course not. But at this moment, Nero turned around. Standing behind her was the new boss of the club, Luaccio. Who else could it be? Hello, Miss Nero. Luaccio said softly. Excuse me, is there anything I can do for you? There's a business. Nero narrowed her eyes and licked the black card gently with the tip of her tongue. She smiled charmingly. Do you want to do it? Of course. Boss Luo nodded. We won't refuse the customer's request. What a good boss. Nero blinked and said, I'm thinking if one day I can't survive, I'll sell myself to you, okay? You'll protect me, right? Of course, as long as it's your request. Boss Luo's extremely official answer. Thank you.